Hello, Norbert.
Hello, Sai. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you?
Well, just recover from the heavy load yesterday. So,
There you go. There you go. We're on day three at this point. So definitively, welcome, Norbert. Welcome to all joining us and those who are likewise listening to the recording to Agility, Resilience, and Antifragility 2022 Pro Bono Conference. I'm Sai with the Antifragility Institute, one of the co-founders, and I have the great pleasure of being with Norbert, community manager and founder of the Friends of Antifragility. Norbert, do you want to briefly introduce yourself as we get started?
yeah, I founded the Friends of Antifragility just in August. It was very spontaneous, and at the same time, also Sai contacted me and soon came up with the idea to have to organize this conference together. And yeah, so we are here, and I'm myself looking forward to hear the great contributions of your
Excellent.
friends and of my friends.
There you go. Exactly. And likewise, a little bit about my background, coaching consultant, if you will, transformation and change, as I've mentioned, partnering with organizations around their business models and operating models to really have an impact in the world. The only other thing I'll mention very critically is I'm very, very keen on, as I like to say, theory-driven practice. So practice is extremely crucial, and then most definitively, practice-informed theory. One additional thing, I've been doing this for far too long, and as I've shared with Norbert, amongst others, I'm very eager to retire at this point, if you will. So I'll say it that much. So we're looking at day three, and we've gone through day one and day two as a kaleidoscope of conversations. Just a little bit of background: kaleidoscope of conversations, keen perspectives, if you will, and really practical approaches and valuable insights that we're mining together. We're sharing experiences as such, learning from one another, and again, really focusing on the practical. I did emphasize over the last 2 days, and I want to emphasize again, the fundamentals to these concepts are there. I'm very, very keen on saying we should not be trying to bend the fundamentals to the degree that they break. What I mean by that is, again, agility has roots in John Boyd, resilience in C.S. Holling, and antifragility, of course, in Nassim Taleb. A lot of space for innovation. At the same time, the fundamentals are there. So as we've talked, and again, I want to pull a few other folks into the conversation with Norbert and I. We're on the brink of a new horizon is the theme for us. And likewise, we really can no longer embrace our traditional worldview with yesterday's orthodoxy, but rather must embrace a modern worldview if we are to survive and thrive and reconceptualize a lot of our experience based on today's reality and moving forward. 3 days is what we've organized. The first day was about fear and leadership, very, very key to establish foundation. And we talked about ecosystems and working from there. We continued with day two with risk and agility, in particular, risk ecosystems with Michelle. And likewise, we wrapped up the day yesterday with Chet Richards. And then today, the real focus is security and uncertainty. How do we ensure our security is a fundamental question, and how do we navigate uncertainty? So we'll have Robert Fowler to close us out. So quick backdrop. Any thoughts, Norbert, before we invite a few folks into to likewise share?
Well, these two things, uncertainty and security, seem to be opposite, but that's also a chance. Yeah, you can also increase your security with uncertainty. Yeah, you can gain from uncertainty. Yeah, that is the concept behind antifragility. Utilize volatility and uncertainty in our world to become more safe, more secure. And but this is a complex concept, so we will hear some experiences from practitioners. I also forgot to tell you that I'm a pure practitioner myself. My main job is an engineering director at Bosch, and I apply these approaches for decades already, and always educate myself with the latest books and theories. But I'm not in theory. I'm 95%. I'm in the application.
Excellent. And I think that's a key point as we've really explored and very, very keen in how we practice. The world is paradoxical, and that is extremely crucial. Security and uncertainty are respectfully paradoxical concepts that have to integrate and are truly entangled. So well emphasized, Norbert, all around. So if you're good, I'm going to invite Mudasir and John in, who likewise have been keen and instrumental to the conversations throughout. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Norbert.
Hi.
Mudassir, you're on mute.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Norbert. So, Sai, on
Hi.
a lighter note, I know you have been doing this for quite a lot. No, you are not ready to be retirement, and you cannot be retired soon.
Understood.
We need your wisdom and practice and experience still.
You're very kind, my friend. You're very kind, and I definitely respectfully appreciate the coaching all around so definitively. I hear you. I hear you. Welcome to both of you. Would love for you both to sort of quickly introduce yourselves, gentlemen.
Mudassir.
Oh, okay, fine. So I'm a coach working with organizations and leadership to transform, and I work with the teams and leaders across the levels in the organization, identify the opportunities and challenges, help everyone to operate at their level, at their best. And yeah, much more to what I just mentioned, and that's a quick introduction of mine.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mudassir. I'm John Cherian, a coach, a consultant, a practitioner. I partner with organizations on their transformation journey to build effectiveness and build muscle wherein they can navigate to be as fluid as possible and get the maximum business impact as possible.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Gentlemen, quick, I know Norbert and I shared our sort of quick thoughts relative to the day, quick thoughts on the day and the overall event. And for the overall, we'll definitely catch up later, but particularly the day, security and uncertainty, gentlemen.
So much looking forward to this day, Sai, because one thing good about this conference is we get people from different walks of life. And then more importantly, it is not theory, like you say, right? These are things that they put in practice. And then getting to learn from their experiences is huge. Yes, looking forward to it.
Excellent.
And
point.
from my perspective, security and uncertainty are similar, yet they are different. They can be called as peas in a same pod and then still continue to be distinct. And this is a unique combination where we strive for be more secure at the same time the uncertain things will pop up, and then we need to navigate that. It is going to be a very interesting and insightful day.
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually I'll mention it. I have the direct quote later when I do my session, but there's almost a direct quote where Taleb is emphasizing, if you will, avoiding uncertainty is essentially really the best way to reduce your security, if you will. And that is one key detrimental factor, exactly as Norbert, you mentioned, and likewise Taleb emphasizes. I'm sure I got the quote wrong in its all its form, but we'll definitely have it later when we do some of the work there. Gentlemen, we've got a couple of minutes. Any sort of things that you are very keenly focused on for the day that you want to really call out?
I wanted to remind you about yin and yang principle. Yeah, this is just an instance of yin and yang principle. You everywhere have this in the world, day and night, black and white. Yeah, you need both. Yeah, there is no security without uncertainty, as I said. Yeah, why is that? Because things have to move forward. And to move forward, they have to change, they have to develop, they have to evolve. Yeah, and development is never possible without uncertainty. You never know where it goes. Yeah, and it has to go forward. That means to a new state, yeah, which has never been on Earth up to now. Yeah, so of course it's uncertain, but without uncertainty, there is no development forward. Yeah, only backward. There is no standstill. Yeah, it goes backward or forward. Everybody wants to go forward, so you have to take uncertainty for that.
Very, very well said. Most definitively, exactly. The paradoxical cannot be avoided. That is the reality. Any thoughts, Mudassir or John, as we get ready to kick off relative to the day?
From my perspective, can't wait to listen and understand the insights from our distinguished guests. And they are from a wide range of spectrum to mine, and then everyone has unique backgrounds. So what they have to offer from security and uncertainty is going to be very interesting.
Excellent, excellent. Um, I know we're waiting on Ralf here to join us, so we've got a couple of minutes. Let's. I just pinged him to see if he's going to be joining us here, which I anticipate he will. There we go. If you folks are good, we're gonna dive into the conversation here with Ralf and what have you. But Norbert, thank you so much, and we'll definitely catch up later. And likewise, John, thank you, and Mudasir, thank you, and we'll definitely talk later, gentlemen.
Sure, sir.
Excellent.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. What we'll do, folks, is likewise we'll just kind of sort of take a 1 minute sort of pause, and then we'll have Ralf join us, and we'll dive into the conversation. Very much looking forward to it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Ralf. Welcome.
Welcome. Now I have to chat. Okay, welcome. I have to do my background a little bit differently. Okay. Camera. Okay. How we do it in this? How you can do another background?
If you go under settings, you should be able to do virtual background and change the background.
Settings. Where are the settings? A second.
On the bottom.
Settings. I have
There
it.
you go.
Camera.
You should have settings and then virtual background, Ralf.
I haven't. Einstellungen, Kommentar. Where are the settings? Okay. No, okay. Doesn't matter.
All right, my friend. The important thing is we see you and we're focused on you. How are you?
Excellent, excellent.
Wonderful. It's so good to have you. It's so very good to have you. And you've got a tremendous topic. So we definitely would love to learn a little bit more about yourself. So briefly, please introduce yourself and we'll dive into the topic, Ralf.
Yeah. First of all, my name is Ralf Schneider. I'm the group CIO of Allianz and in charge of IT governance, IT strategy, and cybersecurity for the whole group. At Allianz Group is a large group, so I have to organize more than 60 CIOs and more than 60 information security officers with their teams.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So definitively a wide scope and a wide responsibility with a lot, especially in cybersecurity and what have you. So Ralf, with that sort of introduction, would love to sort of get your perspective on the topic and as you look at it, cybersecurity through cybernetics as the anti-fragile, cybersecurity through cybernetics. Kind of introduce us to the topic, my friend.
Mm-hmm. First of all, the VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous world, I would say the last shot is now done with cyber threats and cyber risk. I guess we have built the other way around, a very fragile, digitalized world, very fragile, yeah. And you can destroy this world very easily when you destroy the IT. So cyber risk and cyber threats are really on the topic of each and everybody. So fragility and security are very, very close. Therefore, you need another concept to overcome this challenge. And the other concept for me is antifragility.
Excellent. Excellent. So to kind of really focus in on cyber risk and cyber threats, as we, if you will continue to evolve as a society across the world, we're getting much more deeply integrated with technology. Should we be more concerned, if you will, Ralf, as we're evolving, or kind of what guidance and perspective would you have to offer us?
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit where I understood that the world is changing tremendously. This was in 2013. Why 2013? There was 2 disclosures. First of all, it was Snowden, and you see what's possible in IT.
Yeah.
And the second was and hacking. And the second was that the iPhone of our Chancellor Angela Merkel was hacked. And in 2013, it was clear there is such a potential to hack, to destroy, to manipulate IT, or to control over IT, and of the other by each and everybody is affected. You can the chancellor and the potential. So I would say, and I said in this time, cybersecurity is the bullseye on the press of each and every CIO. Nowadays, I would say cybersecurity is the bullseye on each and every human being.
Yeah. Yeah. As you look at it from that vernacular, and exactly to your point, it's more now on every human being versus just the CIO. Are we looking at the problem from the appropriate vernacular so that we're not respectfully blindsided, or are we doing everything that we can to navigate black swans, for lack of any other words?
Yeah. Black swans we cannot predict. Yeah.
Yep.
I guess in this community and in this round, everybody has understood we cannot predict black swan. Only what we can do is that the probability of black swan going down and the damage of a black swan is not too huge when it occurs. Yeah, this is the only way.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's not enough that you know what's coming and planning and doing organization and processing. I would say, to my home turf of cybersecurity, you have to learn cyber defense. Cyber defense. By the way, you cannot do this alone. In cyber risk or cybersecurity, you never walk alone. You need friends. This is very important. You need friends. But you have to train your own organization and all the people. You have to train people for these cyber threats and cyber risks. And then become very close to Mr. Taleb. Yeah, you have to train, because cyber defense also survive in a digital world. It's a capability. And a capability, it's not only that you have it once and then forever. No. And I guess in your conference you discussed it. You have to train always. And now coming, and this is the bad luck in cybersecurity, the improvement of the dark side, the cyber criminal, the state sponsors, the hacktivists, and so on. The capabilities are growing and growing and growing. So the defense capability has also grow and grow. But I would say this is also an opportunity, but because therefore the colleagues have to work together. And I believe it or not, we have one topic where the 63 CIOs of Allianz Group and the 60 information security officers working together. This is cybersecurity. So when the pressure is strong enough, then people work together. Therefore, I see in this world a good working together. But you have not to forget, you have to train. You have to be fit for the Black Swan event.
Yeah.
So it's a training of fitness. I would say cybersecurity is a fitness training for the D-Day.
Yeah. Excellent points. Most definitively, black swans are not predictable. Gray rhinos, if you will. As we look at the landscape, we can begin to prepare, and likewise continue our preparation through, exactly as you said, really, as the pressure increases, the stress increases, we have to become more fit, if you will,
exactly,
to what's forthcoming.
And there's only, therefore, it's a good point. You know it, I know it a little bit. stress is a good training effect. The problem is when the stress is so too high and is destroying you, then it's the problem. But the stress is good, and you have to embrace. Therefore, a saying in IT environment, because in IT you are always too late, too expensive, and too slow. Therefore, you have always stress and crises. But this makes you stronger, and you have to embrace it. And therefore, in a saying in IT, never waste a good crisis. Yeah,
Yes.
and therefore never waste the stress. But you cannot do stress as you're doing training permanently.
Exactly.
And this is the trick in antifragility. You have to train, but then you have to have time to relax and give your body and your brain relaxation.
Very well said. And this is a key. Recovery time is crucial when you're training and conditioning. But if you don't embrace the recovery time, you actually then really give into fragility, and you wither away. You die at that point. So most definitive, excellent point.
Yeah.
Ralf, if you don't mind, I want to hone in on a few things that you mentioned, which I think are very key, and I'd love for your elaboration. You mentioned that this affects all human beings now. It's no longer just CIOs or what have you. So definitively, it's very broad and deep. The notion of friends. When we talk about the notion of friends, the landscape to navigate becomes that much more political, if you will, because within organizations across society, political in the sense, if you will, that there's power and things involved. So how, what kind of guidance and kind of what kind of things have grabbed your attention in the making and navigating with friends?
First of all, you have there is also a very good concept in. I'm working in the cyber defense. I can also, and what we are doing, we are training our people with red team exercises. We training them with penetration tests. We training and looking for vulnerability. So we're doing a lot of training, awareness training, phishing campaign, train the people. What you are saying, why we are doing this, because you have in cyber threats, you should know your enemy, because they are enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, these are not partners. Cyber attackers are not partners. Yeah, these are really enemy, and therefore you have to be in a defense situation. And therefore, in each and every of these battles, of an offense hacker, you are defense. You should know your attacker, but you should know yourself, your own capabilities, your own weaknesses, your own vulnerabilities. Is so important to balance this. Therefore, I would go a little bit to the outside. What are the threats to your organization or you as an individual person? There are 3 attacker categories, I would say. The first category is there are some human beings out, they want to destroy you, your organization. You see it in the war. Sometimes there are people, they want only to destroy you. Yeah. Of course, this is very seldom. It's not so the probability no high, but they are there. Yeah, and they prepare. The second is all the attackers. It's, I would say, they are interested on profit, cybercrime. And cybercrime, each and everybody could be a victim. What's happening, for example, in Australia, Medibank, a healthcare company, lost all their data. And nowadays, ransomware is going to the customers of these companies, because all the data about what your treatments and everything is disclosed, and they ask you to disclose. So ransomware can each and every organization and each and every human being confronted. Last but not least, not to underestimate it, they are out also, guys, they want to control and to manipulate you. Yeah, you know who I mean. Yeah, And also there you have to take care that they are not controlling and manipulate you, with all this IT stuff. And therefore, my advice would be have a look, because this is so complex, and I know a little bit of this, but it's also for me very, very complex. Therefore, you have to reduce a little bit your model. First of all is take care of your identity, of your personal identity, because when your identity is stolen, then good luck. Whether you are in an organization, when your system admin, their identity is stolen, then it's hard to defend. So identities, digital identities, very careful. You can do a lot, multi-factor authentication. You can use a credential store. There are tool sets. You have to learn also these tools to be safe. Then more the IT guys, what they are doing, you have to make the IT devices, whether a server, it's in the cloud, or it's your PC, your laptop, you have to take care of the hardware environment, that it's not infiltrated, your device where you go in your environment. So take care of your advice. It's always so each and every batch you should put immediately in your system. And last but not least, and this is also therefore there you have to trust some companies and partners. You have to take care of the network between your identity and the IT devices. And therefore, and there are also offers in the market for human being and of course for companies.
Definitely. I really appreciate the way you're describing it, because you have to know yourself. You have to start with knowing yourself, number one. Number two, you have to understand exactly, as you mentioned earlier, who you can navigate with as friends, and then also the enemies, because that's essentially who's going to attack you, if you will. And
antifragility is also a network,
Yes.
A network is a very anti-fragile concept,
Yes, very well said, my friend. And I really appreciate the different aspects that you've mentioned, especially when we all talk about trust in the world, right? The one question that comes to mind is, and as leaders similar to your role, etc., look at their organizations. Some will say, I really have a high trust of my employees. Some will say I have less trust of my employees. What is your suggestions, recommendations, as people reconcile the trust idea, because we embrace it so deeply relative to the things that you mentioned about identity, about hardware, about network security?
In IT, I would separate it very clearly between two. We are living also, we are living in a social, cyber, physical environment. People are connected to machines. People are connected to people, and people are connected to machine. Machines are connected to machine. Everything connected. Therefore, there's also a concept in IT: zero trust. Zero trust in technology. Zero trust. Verify first and then trust. And you cannot imagine how fast you can verify in IT. It goes in milliseconds. So verify. The problem with human being is there you need the trust concept, because in human being, to start with the concept of zero trust, this is something. There are techniques. Interaction between human beings with zero trust, but this is more or less for agencies. You can support this with technology, but in the human being factor, we have to find trust concepts. But in IT, you should not trust. And exactly the problem with the digital identity. Why? Because when your digital identity is gone and the hacker is using your digital identity, each and everybody in the IT environment is thinking, this is Ralf Schneider. We are not thinking this is an attacker. We are thinking it's Ralf Schneider. So therefore, this is very important. Therefore, we are trying to understand the concept when it's very tricky, and Ralf Schneider is with his digital identity accessing where our crown jewels. Yep. What we are doing, we are asking back by a phone number and or something and ask him, hey Ralf, you are doing this at the moment? Yeah. And when he cannot verify, then we are not allowing it. So zero trust in machine and concepts and digital environment, but trust in human being.
Beautiful.
Trust in human being.
Beautifully expressed. And I love the way you're describing it, because you can have, with human beings, you can have, in double quotes, the notion of zero trust, but use verification. You know, are you doing it to really build and ensure that you have that trust factor? Very, very eloquently expressed, my friend. Excellent. I want to go back to something that you mentioned also. Actually, I've got a couple questions. Let me continue with the first one actually before we go back. How about the role of AI, as AI is emerging more so and more so, Ralf? What are your thoughts there?
It's interesting. I was on a conference, the Geneva Association. This is an association of global insurer. We meet in Munich, and I was there, and I had exactly the same question of AI. I can tell you, the offense is using AI. Yep. So no way out that you have to defend also with AI. But there's and we have to learn and to invest in these AI. The tricky thing is in cybersecurity, you have to separate between artificial with normal human behavior and attack scenario, attack vectors, and it's not easy. It's not easy because somehow some human being behave like an attacker, and you cannot investigate each and everything. So you have to find, and this is a little bit unbalanced with AI, what to investigate. But you can imagine we are getting millions and billions of signals each and every day, and we have to filter out what could be an attack and what could and what we have immediately to investigate. And there you need a lot of analytics because you cannot do this by human being, and you have to use AI.
Yeah. Any further thoughts on the analytics piece of it, Ralf? Because it is so crucial to inform, you know, even at a periphery level, let's call it that, even if your data isn't good data, if you will, but something to work with. Any further thoughts on analytics?
Yeah, this is a very clear three-step approach, but this is agnostic. You can use it in each and every environment. First of all, you have to get good data. So, but not only good data, but automatically the data. Please not only trust on data which is aggregated by human beings. Yeah. Then so you have to connect in IT is very easy. You have to connect with sensors. Yeah. Therefore, you got all the data. You have your analytics should be connected and integrated with a good data source. Then the analytics could manage in an effective and efficient way this data. Yeah, because this is not only to connect and then you pay a lot of money, or it's not working, or it's slow, then forget it. Yeah. But then the real hard stuff is coming. You have to aggregate your data and to visualize. So you have to do the analytics stuff in a good way. But then and the software is getting better and better in an exponential way. You cannot imagine what's going on in this environment to visualize data, to analytics, to do machine learning. There is a tremendous progress. But it's not the end, because then you have a great transparency. But when there is no call for action and the human being is not doing anything, then you know everything, but nobody is doing anything. And therefore, to find the right and good call for action, this, for example, when you could in finance, to invest then in the right thing, really to invest or de-invest or not investing. So you have to do some decision, and these calls of actions, this is very important. And a lot of people are dreaming, but I can say this will not work in cyber. I do not know whether it works in other areas, but in cyber it's not working. They're dreaming to do this fully automatically.
Yeah.
Forget it. Why? You are attacked with good weaponized human beings.
Yeah.
And you can only defend with good weaponized trained human being. So the human being in this circle of data, analytics, call for action, then cybernetic feedback loop to improve your model, your analytics model when you are not effective. This has to be done by human beings and not by machines.
Words of wisdom, my good friend. Words of wisdom, most definitively. Very much appreciated. I love, likewise, the whole loop to action, because if we have data, we don't do anything. It's useless if we don't take action. It's completely useless. And yeah.
And my belief is, when you do too much automatic actions, I guess it could help. For example, in cybersecurity, when there is a malware, you block the malware. This is simple. But a real cool attack or so, you cannot automatically block. Therefore, this is a thin line, what you do automatically and where you have to do by a call of action a more sophisticated network in my action. This is a thin line.
Very well said. Very well said. There's another, I want to go back to now something that you said, and I'd love your perspective on it. You talk about training as a key factor, if you will. One of the two particular techniques that I have used when working with organizations, and I would like your insights and perspective on, is I tell people, don't simply do training, do scenarios, do simulations, if you will, truly experience something in order to build the muscle, if you will, that is necessary. Yeah.
I heard this from a colleague, and this metaphor is so amazing. And I guess you understood it fully, what you described for the whole audience here. It's the following. When you are a pilot and you are flying a plane, you earn good money, I would say. For a moment, I do not know exactly, for guess 100,000 bucks. Yeah. What they have to do when they fly a plane, they have to do a simulation each and every year in a simulator. Why they do it in a simulator? To do all these uncertainty is totally stress, and train. They have to do it 2 times in a year, 2 times, 2 days, and then the simulations is done in such a way that all the uncertainty, oil is not working, the heat, and so on. They do a lot of stuff, and it's what I heard. This 2 very stressful days for them. Why do they doing? And they invest, and the cost of the 2 days is not too much for the pilot, but also money. But the simulation each day cost the plane companies, airplane companies, 20,000 euro. So they invest for uncertainty and emergency testing for each pilot, roughly 40,000 euros on top of the normal salary. You see?
Yeah. It's so significant. It's so essential. Exactly as you're describing. Very, very powerful, my friend. You know, as I zoom out, Ralf, and we talk about stress, this takes us full circle back to stress and the importance of stress in really helping us.
And we as human beings, we should go in this, not 2 days in a simulator, but why not? That you see a tech simulation, what I'm doing, or when I have mobbing in the internet and I taking care, or ransomware, why we are not training this and then use it. The best is prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Yeah.
Eloquently said. Eloquently said. My good friend, we're coming up on time. Any sort of closing thoughts? Anything to leave us with? Otherwise, it's a pleasure having you. But any closing thoughts, Ralf, that you'd like?
I would say we are always discussing. First of all, in cybersecurity, everybody thinks in protection and robustness, and a lot of people have said, "Okay, it's not enough. We have to think in resilience." And normally I stop in conferencing with resilience.
Yep.
But in this conference, I would say you should not stop. You have to invest in robustness. You have to invest in resilience. But you have to think about antifragility.
Yeah.
Why? You know not what is coming. And this antifragility concept is so strong. You have to take care. And my last comment is, I'm so happy, and a lot of people are saying, is it coming? Is it not coming? And I say, it will come. You cannot avoid it. It will come, and the stress will come to you, and then it's good to be prepared. You cannot avoid it. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
It's the reality. And truly, exactly to your point, if we do not really embrace anti-fragility as a concept and embody it,
comes to you.
It's going to catch up. There's yes. You know, it's what's intriguing, and I have to mention it. When Taleb's book came out, and then years later, I was practicing before. My book came out in 2016. Is when my book came out. People said, "Well, we don't need it. We don't need anti-fragility." I said, I'm already working with clients doing it. They've already imbued pieces of it, if you will. It is here today, and we cannot avoid it. To your point, so definitively, very, very.
So the better way is, I learned it from you. Better is not to try to avoid, embrace it. Yeah.
Yes, my friend. A pleasure having you, Ralf. I hope you will come back and join us in the future, if you will, and offer more perspective. Truly an honor to have you, and thank you so much for making the time, Ralf. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you. See you.
So
Bye-bye.
Take good care. Bye-bye. Excellent. And folks, we'll take a real quick break here, and we'll have the honor of having Jodi join us in Conversations with John. So thank you again, and we'll be back here in a few minutes.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the conversation, Stronger from the Storm, The Sun Still Shines with Jodi Brown. Hey, Jodi.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be with you, John.
Thank you for being over here with us, Jodi. Jodi, if you could quickly give us and our viewers a quick introduction about yourself.
Absolutely, thank you. I will tell you a few things about myself. That is, number one, that I am a professional speaker and trainer, and I help leaders and teams become anti-fragile. by using the principles of this great concept and how to work it into their lives and businesses so that they can become stronger from the struggles. And I have learned a few of these things myself in my life journey and health journey in the last dozen or so years, in being diagnosed with a tumor wrapping around my brainstem, which has caused me to now have, I'm up to 15 surgeries now for the repairing and reconstructing everything that happened in the course of going through this brain tumor removal, and dealing with the after effects, the facial paralysis, hearing loss, and all of the various things that I have experienced. But I can tell you absolutely that I have become better, not bitter, and I have grown stronger from this storm. So I'm happy to join you today.
Thank you so much, Jodi. It's always inspiring to listen to your story. So if you could throw some light onto your story and what got you to write this book.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think the thing that got me really to write my book, which is called The Sun Still Shines, was the fact that as I would tell people just originally what was my survival story, which was how I got through this initial months and then now years into this journey, because my tumor was initially deemed to be inoperable and by 25 doctors and an entire healthcare system. And it was through the process of continuing to push, to look for answers, not give up, have no single point of failure, that we pushed through and were able to find someone that was able to operate, which in turn saved my life. But that was just the beginning of the journey. I ended up having many, many complications and side effects, and just surviving turned out to be the focus of my life for quite some time. And I spent, 7 weeks in the hospital, 3 brain surgeries at that time. And when I started sharing this journey with other people, they were just amazed and said, "Oh my gosh, have you written this down? Have you written this down?" And so as I started to speak about it and share my stories, everyone just begged for a book. And I knew it was a good opportunity to share some of these messages of strength, of support, of going forward and doing the best that you can to create goodness out of the struggles and changes and challenges of life.
Excellent. Jodi, you are a living example of agility, resilience, and anti-fragility. What went through you when you were going through this? How did you overcome it? Because half of us would have given up then and there.
Oh boy. That is a good question. And it's not a one line easy answer, because the reality is we each get to choose how we show up each and every day. Every single day, we get to choose how we show up. And honestly, there were days, and there still are days, where it is very difficult for me to show up the way that I want to, because my physical body brings so many challenges to me now. But there are a few things that really did help me get through this. And one was the fact that I was surrounded by people who were fighting for me and who wanted me to keep going. And that was a huge strength. And so having a community and a group of support when you are going through change, when you're going through challenge or crisis, is a big factor in whether or not you will succeed, having that network. And then also, I think experimenting and tinkering, which now is a daily part of my life, which is, okay, I can't do things the way I used to be able to. So let's find a new way forward. Let's try something. Let's do it a little different today. Let's see what works. Let's see how we can move forward in a better way. And I've had to figure out a new way to do many things in my life. And as I have practiced and experimented and tinkered, I've gotten better, and I've gotten to the point where now a lot of the weaknesses that I'm left with are hidden to the outside world. They don't know, they can't see all of the struggles that I have, which is the way I want it, because it makes me function more normally, and it makes me stronger for having gone through it.
Jodi, 15 surgeries, one after the other, uncertainty after uncertainty after uncertainty. How does one cope up with this?
The last conversation was fantastic, because they talked a lot about uncertainty. And, when people choose to ignore the things that they don't want to think about because it's uncomfortable, put yourself in a place of uncertainty. I am at the opposite now. Now I'm at the place where, okay, you've just got to embrace the uncertainty and plan for it. So every time I now prepare to go into a surgery, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know what the outcome will be. I don't know how I will be afterwards, but I plan and I prepare, and I try to come up with as much as I can so that I am ready, to the little things even of, okay, my last surgery, I knew it was going to paralyze my nerves for a short period of time, and I wasn't going to be able to process food in my mouth very well. And so when I was packing my bags to go to surgery, I packed a whole bunch of little things of protein powder to take with me, thinking, okay, I'm not gonna be able to eat, but I'm gonna have to get protein somehow. So I brought a bunch of protein powder with me so that I could at least still have some strength for my body. And, just these little things of, okay, what might happen? What situation could I be in? As you start to think more along those lines, then when they hit, you're not caught off guard like everyone else is. And you're able to move forward in a more productive manner. And you're able to make strides that other people get stuck in those spots. They get mired down in the mud, and you're able to keep going and moving forward. And then just embracing the fact that, okay, you aren't always going to know, but you do always have that choice of how you show up and how you adapt in any given moment. And that's a big thing, is just learning to adapt and go with the flow and figure out the best way forward, sometimes 1 minute at a time.
Well said, Jodi. Jodi, you talk about embracing uncertainty, but yes, knowing that the outcome is not what was desired time and again, how did you deal with it?
I would say that number one, you have to give yourself permission to live in those moments of difficulty and experience those emotions and say, oh, I am frustrated. This didn't turn out the way that I want. If you don't go through it, it's hard to release it. And I actually had a therapist who told me that you have to mourn what you have lost in order to embrace what you have. You have to mourn what you have to let go of so that you can live your best life in the moment where you are, with the new challenges and with the disappointments and frustrations that you have. And so I do allow myself to go through that time. I allow myself, but I also put a time limit on that mourning period. I don't allow myself to sink into a depression and just live in it and be frustrated with it. I give myself a time period and say, okay, I am going to be frustrated. This didn't turn out the way that I wanted. This time frame hasn't been met. The expectations we had for the surgery didn't turn out to be what I had wanted them to be. And I allow myself to go through that so that I can then release it and embrace where I am and move forward in the best way possible. And talk about having your soul in the game. You have to have everything that you've got in order to be able to go through those difficult moments and then still embrace the good and move forward.
Excellent. Jodi, knowing that you went through a lot of this, now that when you partner with organizations and individuals, how do you guide them or help them go about these kind of situations?
Well, I love what I get to do, because what I have done is create a system of tools and strategies and tactics to apply to the principles of antifragility, so that when we work together, there are actual, tools and systems that they can implement into their lives and their businesses to help them accomplish some of these things. And I'll give you just a couple of quick examples. So when we talk about building in layers of redundancy and talk about, having no single point of failure, we look at their business and say, where is it that you could be vulnerable? Let's make sure that we are building in a layer, that we are making sure that your people are cross-trained, that you have more than one person who has any given set of knowledge or systems and tools that they have and need to do their job. Because if you lose out one person, what does that mean for your organization? So we go through and build in a variety of tools and systems that will help them be able to do their jobs better. And we talk a lot about teamwork, because having a strong team and support group is critical to be able to keep a business going and to be able to become anti-fragile. And so I share some stories that I love now that talk about in the 1800s, when ships were sinking all of the time when they were leaving ports, and people could not figure out why. And it took one man, his name is Samuel Plimsoll, to discover this. And what he figured out was that the ships were being loaded with cargo, and the cargo was being loaded according to the capacity, the volume of space that they had in the ship. So if there was empty space, they filled it. What they were not considering was the weight of that cargo. And so by filling the space, by looking at capacity instead of by weight, they were unknowingly sinking their own ships. And so I look at this in terms of, we need to look at our organizations and see, we do what I call a weigh-in, and I encourage companies to do weigh-ins with their teams. I encourage people to do this with their families, where you look and see what is the weight that the members of your team are carrying at any given time. Because you may be looking at them in pure mode of capability and capacity. But if you're not aware of the weight they're carrying in their lives, then you are creating a point of failure because you're sinking them as you are loading more on them. Whereas what we should be doing is looking at the weight everyone is carrying and find ways to share the load or to offload some of that weight by building in some of these systems so that we're not solely dependent on any one person or any one process to keep things afloat. And it's an analogy I use all of the time now, but it's true in life. It's true with families. If you're not aware of the struggles that your kids are having, if they have a big test coming up, they are going to be feeling that more, and they're not going to be able to perform their best. So it requires everyone on the ship to help carry the load so that everyone can maintain and be at their best and all can arrive at their destination safely, so to speak.
Then at an individual level, it makes sense, and it's up to me to say that, yes, let me go ahead, face it, and then fight for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we talk about a group of individuals like teams, organizations, and enterprises, it makes us pretty complex. How do you advise or guide us we navigate through this?
Well, we talk about it on a high level first, about why we need to embrace the principles of anti-fragility. And it's not hard. You don't have to look back in time very far. I mean, days, weeks, months is all, to see the things that are happening and how it's impacted businesses. And then as we start to break it down and actually go through each of these individual principles, then we really brainstorm together, and using some of the systems and tools that I work with most companies, then we break it down and say, okay, what does this look like for you? Do you have the coverage that you need in the office? Does your restaurant have options if your dining is closed because of the pandemic? What other things can we put into place so that you don't have that single point of failure? How can we tinker and experiment to make sure that you are better and stronger and safer going forward, and you have more options for how to stay afloat, for how to run your business? And using each of the different principles, we really break it down and do an analysis and figure out what can be done for that particular company, that particular team, for how they can grow, how they can embrace what's going on and not be afraid to try new things. I do talk a lot about the fact that we need to give companies and we need to give team members permission to fail, because we can't expect them to tinker and experiment if we expect perfection and expect them to reach certain levels every single day. They have to be given permission to fail so that they can then try, fail, eliminate that option, try, fail, eliminate, and then eventually try something, succeed, and implement it into their practices, into their families, into their lives. But you have to give them permission to fail, to screw up once in a while, to try something that isn't going to work, so that then they can find those things that do work through the tinkering and experimenting process.
I love the way you said it. Give them permission to fail. Throw some more light on it. How should we start looking at failure?
There is no such thing as failure. If you really look at it, you're simply experimenting and figuring out what works and what might work better. And I think it was Edison who said there's no such thing as failure. There's just another way to, not create the light bulb or something along those lines. So you really do need to have permission to try something that doesn't work on the first time or that isn't going to be successful. And that has to come from leadership. But as the members of the team and as organizations start to embrace that, they are willing to be a little bit more vulnerable with each other and admit that they don't have all the answers. And that's when the real brilliance comes. When you have a system where you do experiment, where you're trying new things, then your daily work comes with a certain set of research. You're testing every day to see how you can get better, how you can become stronger, what makes you more efficient in your work. And there's a company locally by where I live that's their name is OC Tanner, and they have a factory, and their people literally do experiments every single day, and they record the process that they went through and the results. And as they record those results, they embrace the fact that it's not always going to work better. Sometimes they say, okay, well, normally we have 3 people that are involved in this process of creating this new product. We're going to experiment today. We're going to put on a 4th person, or we're going to try it with 2, and we're going to see if we are more or less efficient, or we're going to tinker with this particular part of the process in the timing of it and see, can we produce more, or does it cause us to produce less as we experiment? But by doing small daily experiments, they get better and better and faster and more efficient, and they're able to lower their costs and provide better outcomes for the company and for their clients.
Excellent. Jodi, knowing that you're doing a lot of good work in this area, what is the future going to hold for you? What can we look forward to?
Oh, love that question. I want to be able to be at a point where I have a space on bigger audiences, where I can get in front of more people, where I can share these messages, because as you know, John, we all need this. As they talked about in the last conversation, we need everyone to get to the point where we need resilience, and we need to go past resilience to become anti-fragile. We need it all. We need to understand that the world that we live in does not have any guarantees and certainties to go along with it. And as we get out there and share these messages and help people embrace the principles, then we can move forward in a much more productive manner. I mean, think if we did that in our governments, in the way that we, run countries and economies, we would just be so much better and stronger as a nation and as groups of people if we could embrace that a little bit more. So my goal is to get out there more, get on a little bit bigger stages, get in front of more people. I am working on a book that's going to add some of my insights as to how I've been working with individuals and organizations to help them become anti-fragile, to add to that conversation so that we can all have a little more information and a few more tools and systems to help us.
Lovely. Jodi, it's always a joy to be in conversations with you. If you want me and our audience to leave with a couple of pointers, what would that be?
I would say we really need to get to the point where we analyze our lives so we don't have a single point of failure. One of the things that I love to talk about is, I call it now the parachute principle, which is that you don't want to have just 2 big ropes that are holding you up on your parachute. You want to have hundreds of tiny strings instead, that together, when combined, are stronger when they work together. And it also means that there is no single point of failure, because all of those lines then provide you little bits of strength and added security. And so look at your life, look at the things that you're doing, look at what your company is doing, and make sure that you have those hundreds of lines of strength, rather than having 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 lines that are everything. If you're a restaurant, what things can you consider besides indoor dining, where you have people in person? Could you open a drive-through? Could you do a delivery route? Can you find, can you do catering? Can you find other ways to grow your business so that if a shutdown happens, you don't go under? If you're a manufacturing facility, how can you do this so that you can be essential, so that what you're doing contributes to what the nation and the world needs at any given point in time? It is a joy, really, to be able to work with organizations and help them figure out how they can add new strings to their parachute so that they can fly better, so that they can make sure that they are better, stronger, and growing every day.
Jodi, like you said, right? Embrace uncertainty.
Absolutely. And then when you can actually look back and analyze and say, what did we do? What worked? What didn't work? And embrace the things that worked, and then let go of the things that didn't, and have permission to do that, to fail safely in a way that you know is going to be acceptable, so that you can then move forward for more growth.
Thank you so much for this time, Jodi. It was an amazing conversation. I believe as much as I did, our audience also did enjoy it. Looking forward to
Great.
many
Thank
more.
you, John. I always love chatting with you.
Same here, Jodi. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Hey, Etienne.
Je suis. Oui. Sorry, my son.
No worries, Etienne. We live in a practical world. There will
Yes.
be. And stressors, like we always say, is always good. Well, welcoming one and all to our next conversation on how diversity management supports agility, resilience, and anti-fragility. We have Etienne with us. Etienne, could you quickly introduce yourself for our viewers, please?
Yes, of course. I'm Etienne Dusserre. I'm a French guy living in Germany. I have 4 children. Um, from my, I studied engineering in France, and I'm working in Germany almost my whole working life. And since 1.5 years, I'm working as diversity manager for the Bosch Group in the corporate headquarter in Gerlingen. And yeah,
Thank you, Etienne. Etienne, just to set the stage, what is diversity management all about?
diversity management is an function which is needed mainly in big organization to have a look to the diversity and to ensure that we are using diversity, promoting diversity, and diversity in all its aspects. That means the most of the terms are starting with diversity with women and men, because most of the organization are more promoting typical men's behaviors. But but diversity management is dealing with all kind of diversity. It's also, let's say, in a developer with all the kind of diversity in function, nationalities, ethnicity, and um, the idea is to look at the diversity, to check if there is any statistical things which are not going well. Listen to the people, also see, does people expect leaving some discrimination or some tactlessness, let's say, so people which are not aware about how to speak with that and say things without understanding what we are doing. And yeah, and then there's a lot of different kind of thing we can do. At the end, the goal is to permit for the company to have a benefit from diversity, and
Mhm.
that is not going automatically. So since human beings are made in such a way that you will prefer to be with people which are like you, which permit you to be perhaps faster because you are feeling well, but which are not permit you to grow because you are see, if I'm with a clone, it is nice for me, but not really enriching me. And that's why, at least, especially in big enterprise, you will have some groups, and the groups will be more important. And you, in order to be more sustainable, to 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 have more possibilities also to react to more ideas, you need to find a way to be careful that you are not um, that you have the right process, the right mindset, which permits you to hire different people and to permit them to grow in your environment, and then to to do what is needed to continue in that way. And that since the human being are made like it is, and it is good as we are good as we are, but to at least in fact we are made more for, and let's say, um, the human being didn't change a lot in his existence, but the
Mhm.
way we are working, the fears or the danger which we have, the nature, um, is different. No, we don't need to be. We don't have to have fear because of a beer, but we need to find a solution to complex problem, and we are only able to find this solution if we are putting all different aspect, different perspective together. And we are only able to do that also if we don't need to hide anything. We can hide something if you want, but I don't have to.
Excellent. Etienne, knowing that diversity is not just at workplace, it's a part of our daily life, part of community, society, and everything. How is this uh, playing out with agility, resilience, and antifragility?
You say diversity is there, and it is true and false first, because
Mhm.
even in your life, you will be more in people with. For example, I am Christian, so I have around people which are. I have more contact with people which are Christian as with people which have other religion. So, and you have more people that even with the school. If my children go in the public school, so I have a mix of people, and even if I'm aware about that topic of diversity, I have
Mhm.
difficulties. It's not easy for me to go to people who are different. That means diversity is there, and is more and more there because of the mental globalization, because of the we are able to meet a lot of people. But even in a daily life, it is not easy to deal with that. And that was the first part. Can you please repeat the second part of your question about your question?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, no worries. I'm from India, where we are a secular state, right? My neighbor was a Muslim, right? And then my not neighbor on the other side was a Hindu, right? We were brought up that way. For me, it is very comfortable, right? But
Mhm.
when we walk into a workplace, right, and then for me it was natural, and then it was okay. But there are a lot of organizations, at least not from a religion standpoint, from a gender standpoint, at least we see these differences at workplace. How is how are we basically looking at this? What are we doing to tackle this?
The things what in the workplace, the first we have a common goal. We want to win money for the company, and that is very helpful because at the end, to meet somebody if we have the same goal, we can collect and we have a reason why we need to overcome differences or to deal with to learn to deal with that. That is in the work and sometimes in a workspace, it's very yeah. Sometimes you have more diversity because you only these you are coming there to work on this project which is earning money by doing this or that, and that make it isn't first good things to do with that at the end. But also in if you're coming in the workplace, your team will grow, and you learn to be you will find an comfort zone where in either case where everything will be fine. And sometimes also then you need to have some movement to continue to learn to because sometimes you will okay, I accept everything, and after a certain amount of years it makes sense also even from the in diversity point of view. The Of course you don't want people to change too often to a job because it is always means costs. But if the environment is too stable at the end, you also not learn enough. I mean, you need to find an healthy fluctuation to continue to grow, to have improvements. Um, I think I lost your question, but I hope
No, no,
it's
no. We both diversified people together, right? Now, do we expect that magic to happen by itself, or where can organizations or leaders
yeah.
ensure that it's unfolding the right way?
The thing is, there is a lot of data which is saying, oh, diversity, I don't see the color of skin, or I don't see that. And there, in that way, they're saying it is working for alone. But what I tried to explain before is it is not going for alone. We are not made to meet people different. That means if you don't do anything, you will have a huge chance to exclude people, especially if you are in an let's say if you have a German company with a lot of German people, only one foreigner come into this culture, that will be complicated for him or her if you don't be careful of that. That means to to be able to have, especially you need to be constantly working on that. And the first step for in investment management, we are speaking of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that means the diversity is something which is sometimes your problem you have to have diversity, but in most of the cases, not a problem to have diversity, but to permit them to act. That means you need to have inclusion to permit the people to open their mind, to use, to say their opinion, And that is not going for alone, especially if you have groups, if you have a lot of people which have a common thing and only one or some people which are different between that. And you need to be careful of that. And it is something you need. Let's say the stable state is we are same. And if you want to live with these paradoxes or these differences, you need regularly to look at, to reflect, to learn. You need to have some retrospective, let's say, or from people outside the team which help you to to open to let people speak out the problem, and then in the time you can perhaps add the culture which permits really to we say the things and we are really included and we are really performing together. But it is not the magic. A lot of managers are dreaming it is working for alone, perhaps because they're not knowing what to do. But you need to work continuously on that.
Thank you, Etienne. Because what you're saying is differences are always there, right? But we as human beings always try to find similarities within us, right? What I do when I work with teams is knowing that everybody is different. We give them enough time and an area of security and environment for them to start talking about these more openly, and then try to figure out that common ground or similarity between them so that they can flourish.
At the end, I think you need to have both. You need to, of course, the similarity is your anchor, but you need to be also open over the differences. But that's the differences are the thing which let us grow. And not everybody has the chance you have to grow up in a mixed or area where you are meeting each other. For me in Germany, I have almost no contact with my neighbors. And that means it depends also of the culture. Is the way you are growing up is very different, dependent on the culture, and what is also which are the possibility you have to meet people and to grow.
What is being done in this area for us to grow and then ensure that we are as diversified as possible?
Where in general?
In general.
Man, at the end, in the past, let's say you have something. Sometimes some fest can help. Some common project can help. You need, and that is because also to most of the time you are afraid of differences because you're not knowing people. And then and we are our brain are not good to live with uncertainty, and we are always completing things. Means if I'm meeting one Indian people, my first reflex would be Indian people are like that, and
Get them.
only by generalized. And also we are also good at trying to put the thing in the same direction. That means we generalize and we will prefer to interpret the things in a way which confirm what we are thinking as to accept what is different. But these in each connection you do, each meeting, each time you meet somebody else, then you learn a more colorful picture. You understand all the differences and you can grow step by step. And everything that you are doing which permits to meet single stories and especially, and it is really important to try to meet single stories which are not going in your direction. So because that is what will help you. Oh, okay, it is possible to live differently. It is possible to have that, or there is my culture. I grew up in a very French area, so we was far away from each border, and we lived only between. To my time in my village, there was only French people, and I made a long time to understand. Oh, there are people which are not living around the meal. So we are French. We are the life is organized in such a way. We are very synchron in the time, and going in Germany was for me very complicated because no, it is you cannot expect that. All people are not opening their arm, and these experience to see people are living differently helped me to grow and to relativize what I say. And so at the end, no, I also try to avoid to say the French or the German because there is a lot of region, which is much more complicated. And but only the small experiences and everything that you are doing, which permits you to meet, to understand the other and another perspective, is important. I think also that is the reason why, or in diversity management, we are working with employee resource group, which people which are interesting on that one specific topic. It can be LGBTIQ, um, nationality, or whatever, because they permit to have to be together, and this interest is common, and then you can speak at that, and you can offer that room for other people to speak with them. For example, for in short time at Bosch, a colleague and trans woman was proposing a session to present herself and to present also what it is, because a lot of people are afraid of that because they're not knowing that. And if you're not knowing people which are living that, it is complicated for you. Yeah, it is complicated to understand and to accept also that, okay, that is also something which is existing and I can learn to deal with.
Well said, Etienne. Expose, accept, and embrace the differences,
Yeah.
right? Etienne, knowing that your expertise lies with diversity management with organizations, knowing that we are ensuring that we have the right amount of diversity, inclusion is also taken into consideration. What else is happening in this area? Or how would you suggest that this can be improved further?
The, the third aspect on diversity management is to work on equity. That means
Mhm.
because also something was, at least people which are successful are thinking, oh, I'm successful because I'm great. And often they forget that they also have an amount of chance and luck, but also sometimes, or often, something which was very helpful. So if you are parents which are educated, it will be more easier to you. If you are rich, it is easier for you to come to better studies and so to have a better place. Or if you are in more, that means at the end you need another thing is you need you need to to solve these inequalities, let's say. And sometimes it can be that you are proposing specific things for specific kind of people to help them to come into the place. To and it is that is something it is not always easy to for the people to understand, because it's some sense like discrimination, or perhaps sometimes it is some positive discrimination, but it is for example, one example that I know is in the Latin America,
Mhm.
you can teach English is not teach in public school. English is only teach in private school. That
Mhm.
means if for your company you say you need to speak English, then you select implicitly people from which are able to pay from private school. And um, that means at the end the solution for, if you are recognizing that, is okay, then I don't ask English is not a prerequisite to come into the company. We will teach English in the company, and so we can solve the things. And it is very um, yeah, such a things are important in my opinion. Or as I come in Germany, I get German courses, and but in German people don't need that course in general because
Mhm.
it is already a mother tongue. And to that is the last thing. Mainly, we are speaking of diversity, equity, inclusion to have these three aspects. So you need to ensure you manage different people, to have inclusion to permit them to act, and also to really have the full diversity, to have equity and level the thing and solve the problem, which can be improve the system for that.
Excellent, Etienne. Etienne, knowing that there are a lot of challenges and we are not there yet, right? What can we as individuals or collective of individuals do in these regards?
I think try to see different perspective. Each time you have the possibility to meet anybody or create these things. If in your company you have the possibility to engage yourself in employee resource group, do it. if you have a possibility to have at least one meeting sometimes at least at Bosch we have once a week and big events of diversity where you have a lot of possibility to meet different perspectives. It is very chance to grow, and that means the easy, or you can also try to find or also ask for more movies showing different life or different things. So yeah.
I see a lot of good work happening in organizations too, when they're celebrating different cultures of different organizations, right? They're
Uh,
also talking about women in technology and giving that exposure and then bringing them on board. What more can be done?
it's at the end. I think in company, at least in big company, you have often diversity management and a lot of things which are taking place. And another very important thing in real life, to find also in your neighborhood possibilities to meet the people in your company, in your village or town. Try to also to push such a thing like that, which permit to understand different perspective, culture, and so on. And also if you're putting your children in the public school, try to use that. There is a lot of possibility also in the public infrastructure to meet other people, and that it is something that you can yeah, meeting people is the first step to have a growth mindset, I think, and to understand and to accept the people, and to also to be active. And other thing is really important is, as soon you are seeing something is strange, speak it up, at
Mhm.
least, or in the group, each kind of group. If you see, um, because we don't need to expect people, for example, minorities to defend themselves. You need also, if we have in a majority situation, to support them. So
Thank you,
that's the
Etienne.
topic of allyship.
We are on top of the time slot that we've been given. If you wanted our viewers to go back with some takeaways, what would that be?
I think the first takeaway is diversity is not working alone. So, and we don't also achieve diversity if you are not looking at that. We are not made for that. That's right. We need to constantly have a look on that to have and you start. You can start very easy in your private life, of course, in your working life. Be an ally for everyone. Try to understand the different challenging of the people, and yeah, engage yourself in everything. And diversity is not only women, not only if we all are part of diversity. And if you have a chance to be in a majority status, then use that to encourage other people, to support them, and to make inclusion. But at the end, well, we need to stop also to let diversity, or let the minorities taking care of themselves alone. We need to engage and to speak the majorities, the poor people.
Thank you so much, Etienne. Like you said, right? Diversity is all around us. There are differences, right? We have to embrace that and not wait for somebody to come and say, hey, work along together. But it starts with us by
Yeah.
ensuring that we are all different. We all have to work with each other's differences to accept it, right? And to empathize with where we come from, and then look forward to work towards a better future. More importantly, it's not just at the workplace, but is everywhere that we go. Thank
And
you
to be
so much.
curious. We need to be curious because it's really an enrichment. It is not easy, but it's an enrichment if you are curious enough to meet other perspectives.
Well said, Dayton. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to many more conversations. To all our viewers, we might join back after a quick break. Thank you so much.
Hey, hey.
Hi Mila, welcome to the Agility, Resilience and Antifragility conference. A quick introduction, I'm Dusserre. I'm leadership and transformation coach. I partner with leaders across the organizations and teams to identify the opportunities and challenges in helping everyone to operate at their best to achieve the business outcomes. That
Cool.
said, first, this is going to be a rich conversation. The title itself is so intriguing: Surviving in Digital Jungle with Human Instincts and Emotions. So
Yeah,
before we
right.
dive into yes, before we dive into the conversation, who is Mila Chu in your own words, please?
Well, I'm doing quite similar as you. I'm also a transformation coach, and I'm focused on people in the digitalization. So if we are dealing with all the digitalization, with transforming, with processes, with new technologies, almost everyone forget that people comes first. So this is my core business.
Powerful, powerful. So yeah, and what is all about digital jungle and survival with human instincts and emotions? Please share some insight.
Well, you know, mm, it's it's a kind of synonym, because the digital jungle is, well, it's overwhelming. It's full of danger sometimes, but it's also full of joy. And there's so many new features and so many new things to evolve and to discover. And it's also wild. In my opinion, the digital jungle is still new in our society, and our governments, they don't have any regulations. Not really. Okay, we have in Europe, we have a new law, the DSA, but it's still new, and it's still a wild, complex environment we are living in. And there are so many people who are afraid of technique. And why I give this title to survive with human instincts and emotions is to give the link that it's not about technology, it's about people. And so therefore we shouldn't be frightened for the future if we are steady in our values, in our purpose, in our self-development. And if we really wants to be successful in a manner, I mean, to be successful equal to be happy. Our vision of success was, in the last couple of centuries, let's say, was about numbers and was about money. This is our definition of success. And in my opinion, we have to deal with the fact that we can't scale anything up to the end. We really have to focus on ourselves and have to consider, so what is success for us first? What do we want? And first, what do I want as an individual? So if we are talking about the future, about digital transformation, we are always linking this to the government, to our boss, or to the corporates, to all the big players. But in my opinion, it's so important to take a step back, to have a look on ourselves, and to reflect, what will I reach for, or what is really my goal? What is for me really important? What is my purpose? What are my values? How do we want to live in together in our society? So, you know, in Europe we have a war with Ukraine, and so what do we really want to have at the end of our lives? And if we know our base, our values, our purposes, then we can have long-term goals, in direction of ethical goals, in direction of sustainable goals, and then we can adjust our technique, we can adjust our digital systems, our algorithm protocols, what we all have. And in my opinion, we forgot this. And this is so important that we really go back and have a look on our nature. And what is it about? We are one world, and we are all humans. We have different cultures, for sure. Maybe different opinions, and everything is different. I love the sentence same but different. And this same but different is in this kind of, let's say, in this digital jungle. Let's make this picture full of different animals. Some are harmful, some are very small, some are bigger, and we have also plants, and we have a variety, and this is a pure beauty in the jungle. And we can set this also in our digital society nowadays. We are so different, and we are so rich in different manners also. And why can't we have a focus on that and be connected with each other and with yourself, of course, and then use technology to support this? And I think we really have to do a paradigm. We have to change our mindsets. We really have to change our mindset of success, of
Yes.
economy, of collaboration. And so I really shout out for this: bring humanity into business, and yeah, be connected.
Great. This is you encapsulated a lot of stuff in your introduction and in the opening statement of this topic. So as you talked about how we have changed in last 2 centuries and all that stuff, the question that comes to my mind based on what you said is, what do we need to do differently in order to, as an individual, what do we need to do differently as an individual, as a community, as a nation, as a whole, as a humanity, to revive the human instincts, emotions into our business, corporates, or digitalization? Any advice there?
Yes, of course. Start with personal development. Start with yourself. Of course, start with yourself and be aware with your own behavior, emotions. Be aware with your own instincts. And there's a difference between instincts and intuition. So instincts are, this is very basic. You are born with instincts, and instincts are a kind of protection. And our human brains, they are connected to protect us from certain dangers. And the very clever developers in China and in the Silicon Valley, who are well paid, the best paid in the world, they give all their knowledge to build algorithm systems and protocols to how to say, to trick you out. I don't know if this is the right pronunciation.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have to be aware with our own behaviors, with our own desires, and therefore we can bring this mindset of being conscious, of being be aware with yourself and with your team and with your colleagues, with your people, that if you are in the seat that you can drive strategies, or you can build digital applications, then have a look on your values. This is very important, and figure out all the what if questions. What if this and that comes? Does my application helps you? Does my system helps you? Or what is the consequence of this? And please think in long-term periods. That my experience is that in a lot of corporates, they are thinking from today to the next protocol, to the next report, to the next shareholder meeting. But please think sustainable, I mean, in a long term, and think always what if. And yeah, we are all same but different, and we are all in this together.
Right.
But the first and important thing is really start at yourself.
Good. So, yeah, you talked about being tolerable, being helpful to each other. Start by yourself, and also don't consider the profits, algorithms, artificial intelligence, and robotics, what not. So, the next question is emotions, emotional intelligence, and how can leaders or people in an organization, or in general people or humans, can develop the empathy towards others? And
Yeah.
what is your take?
Yeah, you mentioned the emotional intelligence and empathy. Empathy is one part of emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is coming out has 5 factors. It's self-awareness, self-motivation, and self-reflection. So it all starts with yourself, as I mentioned before.
Right.
And then if you are in a state that you can say, okay, I can deal with my own stress, or I can deal with my own emotions and my own reactions, and then I am, let's say, I'm in the state that, or it's possible for me to gain social competency, and I'm able to hear, to have a look on you, and then I'm empathic, and yeah, this is a way. It all starts with yourself, and you can train this, and it's like in meditation, right? You always have to consider, okay, I'm off my way, but I can come onto my way at any time, any time. So you can't say, oh, I'm not an empathic person, or or he or her don't have any emotional intelligence. It's not true. You can come on the right path at any time by throw your mind, focus your mind on that what is right, and use it. And it's never
Absolutely.
too
So,
late. Yeah. And you can train this every day. You can train this. And we are all humans. We are all under stress, and we have anxieties, we have emotions which comes up in waves and so on. So we are not a Buddha, but we can train this, and yeah, and we can try to reach our emotions on a sovereign level, let's say.
Very well said. And if I may summarize what you said is, think with your heart in the brain, in the mind. So
Yes.
you need to start thinking with your heart in the mind, and then mind is also important, but you need to put the empathy and think about others and how we can be tolerable and survival. So now another question is, your work is around humanization, bringing the transformation with empathy in place, all that stuff. What are the practical advices that you can give to the transformation coaches or leadership coaches to build that muscle?
Well, I'm coming from all the agile methods like design thinking. I'm an expert in design thinking. I'm developing together with my corporates new products, new apps, and everything. Yeah, or we are going through strategic and so on. But first, we have to think. Okay, how can we put people first? What are our desires? What are our needs? What are our values and purposes? And therefore, what are our goals? And the goal is not, okay, let's do this artificial intelligence and buy this for millions and millions. The way is start with a heart, let's say. Start with people and start with a heart, and consider how can you integrate your team, how can you integrate the stakeholders. And in my opinion, it's not about the shareholders. Shareholders are nice, okay, they're important, but more important and really basic are the stakeholders. And consider how can you integrate all the stakeholders and go along with them and, let's say, co-cooperate or co-create your products, your systems, and your culture. And it's all about culture. It's all about corporate culture. It's all about leadership, because this is the angle. Yeah, I think here you got the energy
Right.
to move things on. And in my opinion, here lies leadership, and this starts at yourself. Yeah,
Right.
you have to. It's pointing on myself, and culture. Yeah, it's my team. It's my environment. It's about people. It's about me and the people. Let's say. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
this is really my advice for everyone. Let's say.
Great. Great. Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
essentially,
I have one question. Are you in the States or in India, or where are you located?
I'm located in Bangalore, India. So
In Bangalore. Oh, that's
yes.
cool.
Thank
I'm
you.
asking because it's so interesting to have this different perspective.
Yes.
And I'm here in Germany and in Europe, and of course we have our culture in humanism, in the Greek antique and so on. We have a lot of history which leads to my thinking. Even I'm half Chinese, but in the Indian culture or in your continent, at your continent, there are so many interesting philosophies. And in my opinion, we have to integrate our culture and our hearts into the future.
Right, right. Great. You covered quite a lot of topics, humanocracy. You talked about algorithms, robotics, and how that plays with humanization, and then philosophically also. So there is a lot to unpack, and the time is, and then I was amazed to see it is already end of the time that we got.
Oh,
So
really? It is. Oh my
yes.
God!
So
It's
what
gone
then?
like this.
Exactly. So I have to ask this one question. If there is one takeaway or one or two takeaways that you want the audience or people to take from our conversation, what is that?
Well, start it yourself, really, and reflect, and have a morning routine, and talk with people about emotions,
Mm-hmm.
about feelings, and connect with each other on by heart and not by
Mm-hmm.
numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is it.
Very well said. Thank you. And definitely we may find time to talk further. And thank you, Mila. Thanks for joining the
Yeah, I'm
conference.
on
And
LinkedIn.
thank you.
Thank you, Mudadir.
Thanks.
Hello, Mudasir.
Hi, Sai. Welcome again.
Thank you so much.
It's great to have you in the other side of the table.
Indeed, we are on corresponding sides as such.
Exactly. Exactly. So, without waiting more, let's get started. So, quick introduction and in your own words, other than what you have been introducing, tell us about who is Sai.
Well asked. Uh, you know me well enough as a coach and a consultant, really working with organizations. The thing I focus on is what I call the sacred triad, really helping individuals, groups, organizations, if you will, deal with reality, because I feel that is an area that we are truly, truly lacking, and we are suffering as a human race because of that. Deal with our very nature, human nature, which is not good or bad, it just is. And then deal with our own identity. Identity is quintessential, and through awareness to achieve impact. So that's very crucial about me. And likewise, the other key thing is the emphasis on practice and theory, and really, if you will, as I've said, theory-driven practice, and likewise practice-informed theory. So I don't make stuff up. I discover it in the real world and then bring it together. And I work with many colleagues such as yourself. Two references. Conscious Agility is a great reference with Brad Barton and Mark Ferraro. I have to acknowledge all the great work they have done over the years and impact they've had. And likewise, the Antifragility Edge in 2016, which looks at the background. So that provides a little bit more about me, my good friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Sai, for sharing a bit deep about you. So now coming to the topic of agility, resilience, and anti-fragility in an ecosystem and ecosystem thinking, and what is it all about?
Excellent. So if you're okay, I want to run through just a few slides to set the context and address that question, and you can kind of take us where you want to. Is that reasonable?
Most certainly. Please go ahead.
Wonderful. So I'm sharing these, and I'm gonna go through this very, very quickly. This is from Nassim Taleb. This is what grabbed me in the Antifragile book. If you look at, and this is a great way to think about antifragility, about a candle, about wind, and what the effects are of that wind on a candle, how it really transforms into fire, if you will, and even wish for the wind. So that's very key. Also, Taleb is very, very critical about practice. And if you look at some of the things that he mentions, the key, if you will, is that the significant can only be revealed through practice. So he really talks to my heart, if you will. And this is extremely, extremely powerful. And I love the way he says it. We don't put theories into practice. We create theories out of practice. These are very powerful. And the secrets are revealed through practice. So respectfully, this is why you hear a lot of the things that I say really echo. The other piece is, be anti-fragile and don't be a fraud. Look at the chief ethical rule about anti-fragility and don't cause others fragility. I see this everywhere, with all due respect, especially with consultants. And then, of course, with all due respect to all parties, the whole notion about being human, be aggressively and proudly to be human. That's very key. Have skin in the game, soul in the game. If you're not taking a personal risk, what are you doing? Very, very, very simple. And then the last one, if you will, the central illusion in life, that randomness is risky. This is what we were saying about uncertainty. If you shy away from uncertainty, it catches up. So this is a key backdrop. And I'm gonna run through the next pieces very, very quickly just to give context. If we look at reality, if you will, really it is about, it's a spectrum. Some things are more ordered, some things are less ordered, AKA disorder, but the in-between is what is most intriguing. A lot of tensions, a lot of turbulence, we experience stress. You see some of the things that clients mentioned here about the past, the present, and the future, and then their aversion to things, etc., or inclination. So if we think about these concepts that we're talking about, and truly there's a lot of I want to say there's a lot of confusion out there around these concepts. So if you think about agility, it's reactively embracing change. It's rooted in void. Fundamentally, how are you responsive to change? What is your adaptability or ability to adapt to change? That is the mechanism. That comes from the order side. If you go further, you will, again, this is just to create the backdrop. The anti-fragility side, it's proactively seeking, remember the candle, right? Seeking that wind disruption in order to really grow. So anti-fragility is about growth through the engine of evolution relative to disruption and innovation. That's really what it's about. And you see the intersection now, and most definitively now, of course, the intersection being resilience. At this point, resilience is about continuity. It is about dealing with change and disorder in order to recover. And that recoverability is the main engine. So these are very, very, very crucial. The thing that I emphasize, and again, these are very, very key points in putting the backdrop. These are not absolute properties. These are
Right.
properties of an entity. They're not quite absolute. There's degrees on a spectrum, and they're relative to a given situation. And at the same time, we use stress, if you will, eustress or de-stress as positive or negative, a range of exposure, what's the source, what's the acuteness and chronicness, and recovery time in order to evolve and grow in this perspective. So when people say, you know something, I'm anti-fragile, the first question that comes to my mind is, okay, it's a property. That's not absolute. What degrees have you detected? What is the situation that you've detected it? What's the range of exposure that you've had? These are the questions that we have. Most people that say they're anti-fragile are lucky. They're not anti-fragile at all. And so respectfully, now this gets into your ecosystem question. If you think about ecosystems, which can be at the individual, the collective, and the broader level, if you will, and even further, the way that I approach it, and this is derived again from practice and continues to have the impact, it is a worldview with very key pillars that you see down the middle. And I won't get into the details. So again, I want to move quickly through this, but there are pillars, there are core concepts in terms of focal points, navigation, which we'll be talking about navigation and uncertainty, synchronization, and then you have essentially three principles that are keenly identified: the fluid flow and flux, likewise the options and experiments, and the independence and redundance. These principles, and this is the power of this, these principles in context give us practices. If anybody says, I've got a practice, I'm extremely doubtful, to say the least, because it's very contextual at that. My good friend, there's more to be said, and I know we've had some conversations. I want to briefly mention this, and there's a lot more detail we can get into. But we can essentially look at an ecosystem, look at its agility aspects, resilience, and anti-fragility, understand its maturity, look at an index, and then delve deeper into the agility aspects, resilience, and anti-fragility. And this is work that is forthcoming both through the Institute and a lot of history derived from practice that we're putting forward. Minister, I won't go much further, but we can get into a whole bunch of details anywhere you want to go, my good friend, and what have you. But with that, I will turn it back to you. I took a little bit more time, perhaps, than I.
Thank you, man. Oh man, you are on fire.
My goodness, my friend, when I'm with you, I'm always on fire. You know that well enough.
That's great. So when you talk about anti-fragility in the initial slide or very fundamental is don't be a fraud. Have your skin and soul in the game is what you mentioned, and that is from Taleb's book. So the obvious question is, a lot of people or a lot of middle management or senior leadership who are dealing with traditional way of operating, how do they learn about antifragility? Not a theoretical, and in all, as you also mentioned, theories will generate or evolve from practices. So what is the practice or the fundamental steps you encourage the leaders or wherever they are in their journey of their professional life? What are your inputs there?
Most effective. At the most basic level, Modesty, stress is the instrument. If you look at anti-fragility, resilience, and agility, these are muscles. The way to evolve those muscles is through stress. Look for opportunities to stress yourself. Get out of your comfort zone is a very, very, very natural adage, if you will. But look for those opportunities. If there's a conversation that you don't like to have, well, go ahead and prepare reasonably. Don't compromise your survival, but move beyond survival to thriving. And then go ahead and have that conversation. We're human at the end of the day. So look for those opportunities, conversations that you are challenged with respectfully, relationships perhaps that you are fearful of. And I say fearful as an invitation to have that relationship, very similar to what Kristen Ulmer had mentioned, stepping out of that comfort zone. Or at the same time, if there's a new behavior or there's a behavior that you're challenged with, how can I extend myself? So self-awareness is extremely key in order to really cultivate these things and have that impact that we want to have. And I hope that and if I can be as specific more deeply as you'd like, my good friend.
Yeah, well said. And then essentially, you are touching up on the key points where some of our previous guests has also talked about over the period of last 3 days. And another point is, what is the purpose of anti-fragility? So people, you talked about come out of your comfort zone, And risk, you kind of briefly touched on risk and uncertainty. So coming out of comfort zone is not a choice. So something might happen and someone will be kicked out of from the comfort zone and they need to deal with the reality. So that being said, what is the foundation to build or think from an anti-fragile mindset, and how do we develop that?
So one thing I want to emphasize that you just asked in your question, if you will, but very, very important. Everybody thinks they have a choice until they don't.
Yes.
And so and the conversation from this morning with Rolf, you can't avoid reality. That's fundamental at this. So it finds you versus anything else. So it's no longer an option, simply wait. No one is secure, respectfully. There's an element of order and disorder. There's an element of security and that stability, etc. But we have to move beyond it. And to your question very directly, looking for those opportunities, the ultimate factor for anti-fragility is growth through evolution. That's really what you're seeking. If you're not growing, then that becomes a fundamental, it's not happening if you're not growing. One thing I would ask people to just entertain a question. The question is, what have you had to let go of, and what had to be reborn? This is creative destruction as the core of evolution in your recent past. And most people would struggle to answer that question very openly.
Yes. And good. This is a very, very great start to get into a topic. And you talked about growth, and everyone wants to growth, at least to say everyone wishes to grow, right?
Yes.
And growth. So that being said, there might be a lot of people or a lot of ordinary people who falls in the middle of the bell curve, if I may give an analogy.
Yep.
So they might be contemplating, okay, I need to grow, I need to come out of my comfort zone. What amount of risk should I take? Is this risk too big of a risk, or is this risk a little risk where I might not grow? And how do you give a guidance or some kind of balancing act for such people to grow further?
A beautiful question, Modestir. Thank you for that. A beautiful question. So I'm gonna actually give three questions that lead to sort of the direction that your people can move into. Everybody wants something. Everybody wants growth. Anyone you ask, I want it. Yes, everybody says, I want it. Ask the next question. Beyond what do you want? The next question becomes are you willing to do the hard work? And most people say, yes, of course I'm willing to do hard work. Everybody. And then you get into the reality of doing the hard work, and then you lose some. But the everybody says they want to do the hard work, but do they really do it? That's the second question. And here's the third question that tends to be the filter, and this is part of definitively anti-fragility, the filtering of it, and skin in the game in particular. Here's the filtering question. What are you willing to sacrifice in order to get what you want? So notice, I want it. I'm willing to do the hard work. What are you willing to sacrifice? And you will find the predominant folks at that juncture are not willing to sacrifice. Their ego plays into it, selfishness plays into it, etc. This is individual, groups, and organizations.
Or laziness.
Or very well said. We're lucky. We're lazy. Laziness is a major factor. Most definitive. We're comfortable. This is what laziness is comfort, if you will, respectfully. And then the point then it goes directly to your question: how much of wanting hard work and sacrifice are you willing then to take on in order to ensure your survival? Because you don't want to wither away. That would be catastrophic. You don't want to ensure your survival, but also thrive. And there's a tender point. And that's why stress in the wrong hands, quite honestly, is very dangerous. Stress in the right hands can be extremely powerful. Have the right trainer, have the right coach. With all due respect, all the coaching that you do of me and that I do of you, we're partners in that evolutionary growth.
Thank you.
Long-winded answer, but I hope that addresses your point.
Most certainly, it did address to the core. Thank you. And another point is, this is all great when we talk as an individual or an organization. So a lot of big companies or small companies as well are departmentalized, and each department have their own set of goals, targets, or objectives. The real question is, how does the senior leadership in an organization think think in a way in terms of growth by by the cost of their own objectives or by the cost of their own departmental goals for a greater good? And how do you help leaders to think in that way?
So, again, an excellent question. If leaders think about, and this is why ecosystems are so crucial. I mean, ecosystems integrate these concepts very critically. And again, this is in the practice that I've had with clients for over past 40 years. I would say at least 20 to 30 years have been around ecosystems, to say the least, in practice, if you will. But to your question, leaders have to really think about, how do I help cultivate, very, very key word, cultivate the health of the ecosystem. If you have something that is not working in the ecosystem, you actually don't have to push it out. You have to create the conditions, cultivate the conditions, so it naturally withers out of the ecosystem. This is very difficult for leaders to do. So number one, letting go of control, or the urge to control, or even the illusion to control, quite honestly, is very key. So let go of that. And then two, cultivate in the ecosystem. And if something you care about has to wither away, that is very crucial to be confronted by a leader, and a demonstration, if they can confront it and embrace that reality, a demonstration of them working with their ego versus imposing their will or ego on others. And that is very, very key. So it's cultivation, thinking about the health of the ecosystem, let things naturally be born and naturally die away. That's nature. And nature is our best teacher, quite honestly. So I hope I'm being specific enough, and if I'm not, please do push me for more.
Yeah, indeed you are, and these are quite specific and quite direct responses, and then I'm sure this is quite valuable for our audience as well. So another point that, go ahead. Go ahead, not to interrupt. Go ahead.
If I can add one thing, I meet a lot of leaders, quite honestly, and you say, well, this person is not working. This team is not working in this ecosystem. So what do? They shift the problem around. I said, well, I can't get rid of person X. Well, why can't you get rid of person X? Just cultivate the conditions. They will leave on their own. Well, no, there's loyalty. We bring these stories in our heads. Loyalty. Okay. So the person that has now loyal to you, you're allowing to create disarray and other stresses in the ecosystem, and others suffer. This is a less healthy ecosystem. So many examples I can share, but forgive me, I digressed a bit.
Yeah. This very point that you mentioned is all about going to the root of we being, or current generations being conditioned or brainwashed, how to see world in one way or the other way. And this is completely opposite direction, to see, or maybe to start looking in a direction of anti-fragile way and growth, stress in a good amount. So that's quite powerful. So what else is there for not necessarily anyone in a professional setup, as an individual, as a person, human, how to individually embrace anti-fragility? How can you put that in a common terms?
If at the most basic level, the two, if you will, Mudasir, the two patterns, if you think about options and experiments, ask yourself anything that you're doing, quite honestly. And this is something that I heavily elaborate on, etc. But ask yourself quite simply, what are the options that I have? What are the experiments that I can take on, ensuring my survival? Notice I didn't say safe. I said, or secure. I said, ensuring your survival. That's a very different point of view. But think about what essentially options and experiments I can take on. And then the other one, and people have other words, but the essence of the other pattern is what creates independence and what creates redundance. These are paradoxical. So what do I need to do? What new relationships do I need to establish? Or what new relationships or conversations I need to cultivate, or behaviors or team dynamics, if you will, that will create independence and also redundance? That's another key pattern. That will give us experiences. If you embrace two key words, as I'll share around those two patterns, Be an entrepreneur. That's what options or experiments are about. That will definitively make a difference. Am I being entrepreneurial enough? Again, survival and thriving. And then, am I being an explorer? Children are so natural at this. It's beautiful. It brings me to tears, quite honestly, when I watch children exemplify this. And one of my greatest teachers, not only my parents and my family and what have you, but one of my greatest teachers is my daughter. She and I. This goes back ages now to actually the acknowledgement in my first book. She reminds me and she teaches me the lessons that I failed to learn throughout my journey.
That's very deep. Can you repeat the sentence what you said?
You're very kind, my good friend. She essentially teaches me the lessons that I failed to learn in my journey. And for years, she has been my greatest collaborator, quite honestly. Don't bring me to tears now, Mudasir. I gotta have a conversation with Robert Fowl. So let's be nice with Cy. Let's be a little bit tender with Cy here.
Absolutely. So okay, definitely. Then let's change the gears, and then let me ask maybe one final or penultimate question. What next, as you being guru of Antifragile, and then what is next coming up from Antifragility Institute?
So you got a little bit of a glimpse. You got a little bit of a glimpse of some of the work that we're doing around indexing, maturity models, etc. These, we're not inventing these in a vacuum. We're actually taking our experience, other people's experience, packaging it and make it more readily available. If you talk with clients that I've worked with and others, if you will, these are tools that we've been using. We're packaging more than anything else and bringing them forward. Anticipate great things. I won't say too much more because the other two gentlemen are not here from the Antifragility Institute.
Right.
You'll anticipate great things with the Institute, amongst others, and the community as always. The key thing that we always go back to is these things are derived from practice. Respectfully to all, and if I can mention just a few other things, Mudasir, just in closing out, if you look at all the work that's been done, not enough attention has been given to post-traumatic growth, PTG, if you will. That's different than anti-fragility. Another area, I would ask people, you talk about anti-fragility. Have you looked at adversity-activated development? If you haven't looked at that whole body of knowledge and how we channel that, that's key. So there's a history that we're bringing forward, likewise through practice and derived from.
Powerful. I know we are almost at the time. So before we close out, one quick question, and everything is takeaway. Whatever you shared here, everything is practical and everything can be implementable. One can practice and sacrifice. But however, for the starters of the anti-fragility, what is that one first step that you recommend?
So the one first step, my good friend, I recommend, and this is going to sound very broad, definitely embrace the learnings, okay? Don't conflate, if you will, but focus on distinctions and distinguish. Don't confuse, really discern these concepts. Agility, resilience, are radically different concepts. They are not the same. And it's not a question of what does it mean to me? Embrace context, but at the same time, it's not a one solution all. And that's why we use patterns. We don't use practices. Again, context plus the patterns give us the practices. So if the broad statement, focus on the fundamentals, because Boyd, Holling, and Taleb have given us the fundamentals, quite honestly. And then at the same time, operationalize. That's what my book is about. That's what my experience is about. That's what we will continue to do. And I hope that provides a broad statement, but I hope it's useful.
Powerful. Thank you. And definitely, and if anyone masters this one suggestion or input, then that person can achieve a lot. And we are still in the process of mastering that. Thank you, Sai. Thanks for your time, and it was always pleasure to interact and listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and likewise, thank you for the opportunity, Mudasir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll take before we dive in with Robert Fowl, if you will, we'll take a 1 minute break. If that's okay, Mudasir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone, and hello, Robert.
Morning. Nice to be here.
My good man, it's such a pleasure to have you, and we are honored with your presence to close us out, if you will. So thank you, dear sir.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're most welcome, dear. Please, can you briefly introduce yourself so people can have a little bit of background?
Sure. I'm an engineer by training. I work in the industrial engineering group in the University of Cambridge, part of the engineering department. And I'm not an academic at heart, really, but maybe I should admit it after 25 years, but I sort of fell into it by accident. I was working in a sort of technical role and saw a little advert in the local paper for technology management, and it kind of intrigued me. And what really appealed to me in the group I work for is its very applied nature. I think at the beginning of today, you mentioned the need for theory-informed practice and practice-informed theory, and that's the fundamental principle. Industry is the laboratory, developing practical tools, but time in the university to think about why it works, why it doesn't work, to develop theory through practice.
Beautiful. And Rob, if you don't mind me mentioning, I have to say, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and my whole career, as well as Brad Barton and Mark Ferraro, truly, we have stood on your shoulders and the work that you have done by all means. So thank you, dear sir, for all the contributions worldwide and that you've put out there all around, sir.
I'm standing on other people's shoulders too.
and that's the beauty of quite honestly, Robert Fowle, likewise, acknowledging the others, so that humanity goes such a long ways. Robert, I know you have a bit of a set of slides. Would you like to kind of set the stage with those slides and as we proceed, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I guess we're focusing on a particular management tool, road mapping, which is a really interesting one. And it's a visual method, so I can't really not show at least one slide. So I've got the one with the sketch of the roadmap.
Most definitely, my friend. We have the whole. Let me make sure we get it up here. We have the whole presentation. So you tell me where we need to go, and we shall go where you like.
Sure. This next slide then. Right. So the definition on the right took a long time to develop, actually, because it's a very flexible method, and you see many different instances out in the world, and through really seeing a huge number of variety, we could establish eventually what we think is a good general definition: structured visual chronology of strategic intent, which may sound, it's a bit compact and abstract, but I'll just summarize that with reference to this diagram on the left. And you can see it's visual. It's fundamentally a visual method, but it does have structure. So you can see the horizontal axis there is time, and that's a fundamental requirement, that time should be explicit, or at least sequence of events is the minimum you can have, which, because there may be many factors why you can't pin things down exactly in time. But that'll be the first thing I look for in a roadmap, is no hiding from time. And then on the left-hand side, by convention, although you can have many different representations, we have some structure, in this case, 3 broad layers, and that's always the case for complete view of strategy. And they're just labeled here, typically what you might find in a business, but it can have very different structure depending on the problem. And what we're trying to do is see the big picture, all of the elements of the system, from the demand at the top to supply at the bottom, that supports our particular, in this case, product service strategy, and how that plays out over time. So in the definition, you'll see chronology, and what that means is a time-based narrative. And so you can think of a roadmap as a picture that tells stories. So what's the story within each of those layers, also in the short, medium, and long term, and how does it all connect together? So the most important objects often are the linkages between the different elements, which represent different stakeholder groups. You mentioned ecosystems a lot. Often the ecosystem structure is explicitly used to organize part of the roadmap. And then it's about strategic intent. It's not about crystal ball. Nobody's got one of those. Forecasts break down. So as you move out over time into longer term, a lot of uncertainty will have to be dealt with, and you may get into different options and scenarios and so forth. So it's about intent, and then the output from a particular road mapping activity is agreement about and confidence what to do next, and then you would update the roadmap. So I've chosen a sort of sketch view because often roadmaps can be a bit over-engineered, polished, which can be useful, but they should be dynamic. A static roadmap is a pretty deadly thing. And so you should think of a roadmap really as a top-level navigational device. And as you go forward and generate new data and learning, update the roadmap and adapt your plan, heading towards, hopefully, value.
Beautifully expressed, Robert. And the power to be able to integrate what is certain, what is uncertain over the time horizon, and approach the complexity in such a flexible way so we can navigate. That makes it such a profound tool, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think it's, all management tools have strengths and weaknesses, including road mapping. The strengths are the visual nature makes it an incredibly powerful communication tool across all of the stakeholders, and can help to reduce the information asymmetries in the system, which a lot of conflict and inefficiency lies there. And the integrative power. So the technique emerged in US high-tech sectors in the 1960s, actually, and where there's a lot of complexity to deal with. And engineering systems was the sort of theoretical basis originally. So on the left-hand side, that's basically your innovation system. And so it's very good at integration of knowledge and the different tools and techniques you need to resolve the question marks in the roadmap, and processes as well. But the weakness is it's a rather weak analytically. You can sit and stare at it and see insights, but to resolve all of those question marks that may emerge, especially in the early iterations, there's no shortage of management tools and frameworks that can bring to bear to parts of the system. And so it serves a really interesting role in the integration of coherent toolkits, because there's a kind of a real problem, I think, of a proliferation of tools. And how do they all fit together in a coherent way? And road mapping is, by its nature, really the only framework I'm aware of that can resolve that problem. And because it emerged in technology-intensive sectors, although it's a very generalizable tool, it's generally ignored in mainstream business school research and teaching. So a lot of people who really need to know about it don't have this sort of knowledge integrator that can help them see the big picture.
Very well said. And I want to emphasize two things, and I definitely want to continue through the slides and respect your time. Likewise, Robert, it's an integrative tool, very, very powerful. And our listeners, please, what you just described around looking at it and saying what's asymmetrical and what's symmetrical is a powerful question just to consider as you look at the visualization. So thank you. I want to make sure people really hear what you said, my good man.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's just. I haven't got a huge number of slides, but it does step through. So I know you can't see the detail, but these are actual roadmaps. Firm level roadmaps are very rare in the public domain because they're usually highly confidential. And this particular one, even if you could see the text, has been redacted a bit. You'll find lots of sector level roadmaps, and they're great sources of intelligence for firm level. But the actual real strategic roadmaps in firms are hardly any ever been put in the public domain. I just want to make the point here that this is actually a fusion startup, which is exciting because that's a sure sign that they've kind of cracked it. Private money is flowing in like SpaceX for space as well. But on the left is a detailed roadmap that nobody will ever see except people in that firm. It's how they're organizing their own technical strategy for this, aiming to get more energy out than in. And what they've done is interestingly applied agile techniques into a hardware environment over a 10, 20-year period. They've disaggregated, uncoupled all the technical problems so they can work on them in parallel. And that's what the underlying logic of that one on the left is, which will be on a big chart in their program management office. On the right-hand side, though, is their investor roadmap. So it's highly stylized, simplified, and it's for communicating really the high-level strategy for the company to their investors, which is critical. So that is in the public domain, and it would have been developed on the back of that detailed version. And so I'd always advise people to work at those two levels. One is you need the detail to sort out your thing, and then you can use that as a basis for communicating outside of that core community to suppliers or customers, or in this case, investors. And you may have a whole range of those simplified roadmaps, which are much more accessible.
Excellent.
So those are little examples. There's a paper on this. If anyone wants it, it's pretty rare. Richard Pearson, the author of that paper, he immersed himself in tokamak energy during his PhD. And so it's quite a broad account of how they used road mapping.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So this is worth pointing at because it took a long time for us to identify the generic form, which is inherently quite abstract. And so why it's such a flexible method is those 6 questions on the left are very widely known in consulting terms, sometimes called the 5 W's and an H. But we found a Rudyard Kipling poem from 100 years ago, The 6 Wise Men, which is those questions, and even a Latin quote from the, I think, 16th century. So they probably go back till the dawn of humanity. But 4 of them, the ones in green, are actually architected into the structure of the roadmap. So we have our time dimension, which is when. The why, what, and how are the 3 broad layers that should always be there. The why is the demand side. What's the need? What's the problem? What's the sort of benefit of your strategy? What is the tangible? What you're going to do? What kind of product? What kind of service? What sort of functionality and performance is needed to address those why questions? And then at the bottom, by convention, how are we going to achieve that? And technology is a kind of knowledge-based resource, but there can be lots of other resources. It doesn't have to be technology at all at the bottom. And that's a universal framework. You can see this appear in many different guises. So technology push and market pull, or return on investment. Return at the top, investment is the bottom and the pathway. SWOT, opportunities and threats at the top, strengths and weaknesses at the bottom. I think if you did an MRI scan on my brain, you would see this structure. But the orange questions are more implicit, but they're really more foundational. So we'll come on to that in our next slide, unless you have any questions about this one.
Not at all. And I think this really emphasizes the intuitive nature of the roadmap, and that's what makes it so approachable powerfully.
And also, if I was ever confronted with a really novel application, just start with this. It's now it doesn't answer the questions. You've got to answer the questions with other tools and frameworks in your deep thought. But it provides a way of structuring information in any situation. So if I have a novel situation, I just start throwing data onto this, start organizing it and structuring it bottom up with the data. And I'm very confident this is a universally applicable device.
Yeah. Excellent. And Rob, if I one thing before we go on to the next slide, this is an instrument and a tool that allows us to be curious about uncertainty versus actually try to control uncertainty. And it's a radically different vantage point.
Yeah, I think people don't often know the real key valuable step is start putting data on it and then step back and think about what you see. Where are there gaps in knowledge? Where there's confidence in what you know? And usually the gaps in knowledge, or where you have a lack of confidence, is the immediate actions you'll proceed with to try to improve the quality of your thinking as visualized in this chart. So the who and the where, I mean, people sometimes say the process of road mapping is more important than the roadmap itself, because you could go into a room and develop one yourself, and it may be very coherent, but it's not going to have much traction in the system. So what you don't see in the final result is the process of getting there. And the best way is to get the people who are involved with the best knowledge involved in that conversation. And it's an incredibly good way of structuring a conversation in an ambiguous, uncertain, and complex environment. And everyone, we just use the magic of the Post-it notes, maybe virtual and virtual whiteboards these days. But it's an incredibly effective way of everyone being able to contribute their piece of the jigsaw puzzle, and organized and visible to everyone on the wall. That picture on the left was a 2-day strategy process. In the first day, we worked all together for the whole company. We had about 25 people in the room. You can see on the top left there, digital composite. I took photographs of all of the output there, and it's really a structured brainstorm. What are all of the possible issues that we might have to deal with? And at the bottom of that chart, that's the IT director with her team, and I actually physically cut out the IT layer. And you can see that in the middle of the room is the second iteration of the IT strategy. And top right in another room was the production director with his team working on the first iteration from all the other functions, sorting out the second iteration of their functional strategy. And then afterwards, we can stitch it all together again to get the integrated overall strategy for the organization. And it's super quick and easy to have a go. That picture on the bottom right is a simple small group activity. In an hour or two, if you can get 2 or 3 or 4 people together, you can have a conversation and test it out yourself.
Beautiful. It's and I think it's very, very key, likewise, to emphasize there's almost a social mind meld of all those contributing, of not only integrating an ownership that manifests in going through this is profound, if you will.
Yeah. people's fingerprints are literally all over the strategy, but you have to guard against groupthink, and consensus can be dangerous. So in these sort of workshops, we often have people involved who are there to ask the awkward questions, and it really thrives with that diversity. Or after the workshop, everyone's very pleased to get to the end, and then you have to throw rocks at it and validate it and do more work. Otherwise, you could all be fooling yourselves and feel very happy about the situation.
Very well said. Very well said.
Yeah, so this is an interesting point that people often confuse road mapping with strategy, because it is a visual representation of your strategy, and I like to think of it as a service. But the boundaries can be rather confusing. Now, this is a diagram of the product strategy process from Philips originally, and I really like it because it gives equal balance to the market pull from the top left and technology or capability push. Because in the end, great products and services are some sort of integration of what's needed and what's possible. And they've put road mapping in a box, which is the integration of all of this information into a coherent view leading to action, targets and actions. And that's probably the primary function. But the architecture, the knowledge architecture, can seep through the whole toolkit and process to provide coherence. And so road mapping might influence the whole process from the start, because they're all providing components of what goes onto the roadmap. And actually getting a coherent knowledge taxonomy throughout the toolkit is incredibly useful. But calling that whole process your road mapping process can cause lots of problems, because people then say, well, road mapping is hard. Well, no, all of that, what's in those boxes is hard, and what it's trying to achieve is hard. Road mapping is actually quite a simple tool, but that knowledge architecture, I think, should be used throughout the process, and that is its function as a tool integrator. So the boundaries can be a bit confusing, but I think it's its forefront or primary function, and then the background or secondary function is this integration.
And leveraging it pragmatically really addresses a lot of the exactly as you're saying, the challenges that we naturally would encounter as we're practicing.
And then, well, the topic today is uncertainty in the context of fragility or anti-fragility and resilience. Road mapping, well, there are two types of uncertainty I think people face. Firstly is, the knowledge is expensive to collect, and even today's knowledge, it may be out there, but you don't know it all. And that creates a lot of uncertainty about your current knowledge state. But inherent in the time dimension of road mapping is the future is uncertain. And as you move out from the short term, where maybe forecasts work, they start to break apart. And then you get increasing, exponentially growing uncertainty. And the roadmap helps you deal with that, because you can see it and start to manage the risks associated with that. And so the framework we found very useful for many years with road mapping is from an old HBR article, Courtney and colleagues. They identified 4 levels of uncertainty. And so I'm kind of using COVID as an example, really, to just illustrate this. Because as you move forward in time, you're trying to, in your processes, shake out the uncertainty and do experiments to generate data, to build confidence. And, the investment and commitments go higher and higher. So it's really important to do that. And level 4, when COVID, I remember watching, the news in Wuhan and hospitals being built like mad. And I thought, wow, pay attention to that. But nobody knew what it meant, really. So true ambiguity. And then maybe a range of possible futures emerged in 2020, maybe more clear alternative futures in 2021. And hopefully now we're starting to see a path forward. And so the levels 1, 2, and 3 are typically associated with the short, medium, and long term of roadmaps, depending on the rate of change. Even in true ambiguity, I think you can develop strategies that can help you deal with that, agility and flexibility and so on, and finding out more experiments and so on can help hopefully shift you down this uncertainty scale. What's useful about the Courtney model is he makes the point that you need different tools and techniques and frameworks depending on the level of uncertainty and the time frames of the roadmap. And they suggested system dynamics is a good tool to start to unpick true ambiguity. Scenario planning is a classic long-range planning tool to sort of think about what's important and what's uncertain and what kind of futures that might end up in. Real options is a really good tool for the mid-range, where you start to see branching possibilities from today and forecasting in the short term. And I've rather cheekily thrown road mapping in every one of those, because used in different ways, it can be useful for any level of uncertainty.
Yeah. Robert, and this, quite honestly, the description that you're providing summarizes so much of what we've been talking about for the past, really, 3 days, if you will. In particular, if I just call out the words as there's a value to forecasting, most definitively. There's a value to options and experiments and understanding where we have redundancy and where we need redundancy, perhaps via the road mapping vantage point. And likewise, where there's independence of elements and what that really means and how that translates to risk and uncertainty. And then using simulations and scenarios to build our muscle, to confront the reality with which we have to interact. And then ultimately the reality that is the unknown and the uncertain that we can't touch upon until we get closer is vividly described here. So this is a beautiful, quite honestly, encapsulation of the last 3 days, Robert. So thank you for that.
Well, there's a saying, in factories in lean, there's a saying that if you can't see it, you can't manage it, right? And so you see visual management boards in factories, and that's the same function in strategy. It won't necessarily tell you the answer, but certainly if you can see it, you can start to deal with it. And making things visible has tremendous utility.
Very well said. So my good friend, definitely going to the next slides and relative to some of the points that you've mentioned.
Yeah, I was trying to just think about the nature of road mapping and how it might address. I don't claim to be an expert on resilience and antifragility, which you guys are, but what I do know is that it can be integrated with that knowledge and so on without conflict. And so I was just had a bit of a think, and resilience in the face of uncertainty does demand agility, flexibility, optionality, scenarios, and risk management, which might be wrapping all of those things up. And road mapping can certainly speak to those. And the visual nature, the communication, if you can't get stakeholders to engage in a constructive way, to build some sort of consensus about what to do next, you're not going to be in a good place. So that's kind of helpful. Now, all processes can, I think, sit on a spectrum from heavyweight analytical to lightweight. And, it's a design choice to how much down that pathway you need to go, just enough to do the job, a fitness for purpose concept. But you always need, what is the ultra rapid quick iteration process? Because that's the best way to start as a diagnostic. And so road mapping, along with many tools, I think, can sit on that spectrum, and you need to think about that. And I would always start small, think big, but start small. And so, we spent quite a long time working out what's the fastest possible iteration we can do without losing the plot. It's kind of skirting along the event horizon, and that's the optimal first iteration. And those workshop techniques can be done pretty quickly, from anything from 2 hours to a day or two, depending on the scale of the problem, which gets you going without too much risk and effort. And then, the challenges we're facing these days are really system of systems, SOS challenges, big transformational challenges that require a lot of coordination. And so the systems thinking and systems base as the tool is essential, I think, for dealing with these complex problems. The timeline, what's really strange, if you pick up a strategy textbook, where's the time dimension? Well, most of those tools are kind of expressed in a rather static way. And with road mapping, as I said, you can't hide from time. So it does allow you to start dealing with those different time frames and trying to, what does good look like in the future? Where are we today? And starting to chart pathways towards the future that can bridge it is essential. Because in the end, we need to know what we're going to do next. But to build confidence about our actions tomorrow, we want to know it's heading in a good direction, and there's a plausible pathway. It may be different from what we think today, but you can adapt your roadmap dynamically. So it's a great tool for transformative, large-scale change. You might use concepts, for example, in digital transformation. We've used an agile concept of minimum viable product for minimum viable transformation. Yeah. So maybe you can break that really big problem into 3 sub-transformations and start to become a more tractable problem. And then this integration, you're going to need a whole bunch of different viewpoints and different tools and techniques, and you do need them all to work together. And that's a key function, I think. And ultimately, we're as I said, you need a range of tools because they all have strengths and weaknesses. And so we found through experience that road mapping with one or two other tools in their general format gives you a very compact, powerful, scalable toolkit platform. And we've never found any conflict with any other tool or framework that we've come across that is needed for a particular part of the system. And it's the road mapping that can do the flexing. And so, people sometimes feel it's a tool competition. Well, no, please, let's use the right tools for the job. And so you don't have to compromise your own knowledge or tool or framework to accommodate the functionality of road mapping. And certainly, unfortunately, all tools have weaknesses. So this analytical weakness, if I only could use one tool, I might pick up road mapping, and experts using the tool can do a lot. Mm-hmm. But there'll become a point where you say, we're not confident enough on the quality of our data here to make this big investment. We want more traceability and more rigor. And then that's where other tools can bring that.
Excellent. Robert, if you don't mind, I'm going to just summarize a few other points from the past few days, because I think you again, very much brought it together in such a way. Our theme about, if you will, looking at the horizon that's forever changing has been really the guidance that brought us together. Time is that ultimate currency that we all have to deal with. You can't escape time. And exactly as you've mentioned, it has to be represented. So time is crucial. And I know as we've leveraged road mapping with other techniques in practice, it helps us achieve greater agility, resilience, and anti-fragility as an integrative tool, if you will, in that way. That allows us to navigate, truly allows us to navigate, integrating knowledge, integrating other techniques, likewise allowing us to navigate, and we adapt it to the situation. So it is, as long as you're pragmatic, it's amazing what we can do relative to the horizon, quite honestly. So dear sir, thank you for integrating, really, like I said, 3 days worth of conversations amongst other experiences. This is directly derived from practice. So thank you for that, Robert.
My pleasure.
If you don't, I know people are definitively interested in learning more. So I behoove us definitely to point them to find out where they can get more about you.
Yeah, sure. So knowledge is power when you share it, is my firm opinion. And the research we do, we want it to have an impact. So I have academic papers aren't the best way to do that. So I tend to publish quite a lot on a website, cambridgeroadmapping.net. So there's a bunch of resources there, some essays, some links to other people in expertise, but also a bunch of templates that people are free to download and have a go. As I said, that's the key message at the end is, if you're interested, try it. And, in quite a short period of time, I think you'll work out whether it's helpful to you or not.
And truly, it doesn't take a lot to get started. I mean, exactly to your point. So dive in, learn, explore, etc. Robert, I know we're coming up on time, but my good friend, a tremendous contribution as always. And we stand, like I said, on the shoulders of giants that stand on the shoulders of other giants, as likewise you mentioned. Any sort of closing thoughts, my good friend, as you bring us to the day and you bring us to the end of the conference?
Well, just from a road mapping perspective, I think looking forward into the future, I think there's so much digital technology evolving so quickly that we should be trying to work out what the optimal or the best mix and hybrid of bringing the best of human and the best of IT and AI and everything together into these processes. So that's an open question, and we have to continually experiment because things are moving so fast. But other than that, I think I'd just like the method to be more widely used, because it's really, it's never been hyped up. It's never got into the airport bookshelf. So it's been a slow burn, and it's punching way below its weight. So I'd really like to see the method used much more widely. That would give me a lot of satisfaction. And as I said, I wish I invented it. We just found it lying carelessly around and managed to make a few small contributions. But it goes way back to the 1960s. NASA and other organizations have been using this technique for a long time.
Very, very well said, my good friend. And I think when I mentioned when we first met, there isn't a client I've worked with that is not aware of, quite honestly, the technique, your work, your contribution, and you're so giving in the knowledge and the learning. So I mean, truly appreciated. But the practitioner in me says, I'm not sure I could do my job, quite honestly, if I wasn't leveraging the technique. So to be
properly indoctrinated, good.
but it works. That's the beauty of it. There's nothing, you can't escape reality, and that's the beauty of it. And I just have to encourage now my clients even more so to share their stories, because truly they are very, very impactful. So thank you, dear sir, for everything that you do and for making the time for us today.
My pleasure. It's been great.
Thank you so much, Rob. And folks, we'll take just a real quick minute before we close out the event. Thank you again, Rob, and thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Hello, Norbert.
Hello, Sai.
We made it to the end of day 3, and by all means, the end of the conference. Immediate thoughts, my good man.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, at the end. So I could go on for this forever.
But every end is the beginning of something next, correct? So
Right.
there's more to come.
Yeah, that's I'm hoping for as well. Yeah, what will go on?
Many things. Tremendous,
But
tremendous 3 days. The guests are incredible. The whole theme of the horizon that we are truly at the cusp of, if you will. Fear and leadership on the first day, risk and agility on the second day, and security and uncertainty, and specifically all of it coming together across the board, I think is truly fundamental. So any other thoughts, Norbert, before I invite, if you will, John in, and then if Mudasir joins us, he'll also join the conversation. But any thoughts before we invite John in?
I just wonder if we join these forces that we could enjoy the last 3 days. I think we could move much faster forward than it's moving up to now. Yeah, but I think a couple of them will do already. So let's get them together one by one.
Yeah. I think to that point, a lot of there has to be the openness, right? To be able to leverage the wisdom, exactly. Standing on the shoulder of giants, as Robert and myself were talking, standing on the shoulder of giants, appreciating giants, if you will, rather than prematurely wanting to be a giant. That is and to be very honest, that's a lot of what I see is people wanting to be giants without respecting other giants and truly giving credence. So, and that's why I say practice is so key. And I love how Robert likewise echoed those sentiments. So
Correct.
a lot of places we can go, my good man. I hear you. I'm going to invite John in, if you will, and then ultimately if Mudasir joins us and see some of John's thoughts. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Norbert.
Hi, John. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing 3 days, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. We started off with fear and leadership, wherein we addressed the human element, saying that, hey, fear is going to be there with all of us, right? And then we looked at leadership as to how, as leaders, can we look at agility, resilience, and antifragility, more importantly, the traits of being an entrepreneur and stuff like that. Then we looked at risk and agility, and that not just from a human standpoint, but we looked at enterprises, and then we went all across the globe to look at, hey, what's happening all around over there, who's doing what. We looked at the electric grid in Europe, right? And then getting those kind of insights from true practitioners was very humbling, and it only tells me that this is just the beginning. We've got a lot more coming.
That's what I'm looking forward. That's we are
Definitely.
striving for, to spread these good news and principles and approaches. And let's hope we catch up with the problems. They are still increasing faster than we are.
And then more importantly, Robert, the way it was, the way today went by through was, there's certainty and there's uncertainty. These are not problems. These are challenges that's going to hit us today or tomorrow, right? What are we doing today to sustain ourselves? And how are we looking forward to tomorrow's uncertainty, which we are not sure about? But what can we still do to prepare ourselves as much as possible not knowing what's coming our way tomorrow, right? And then some of those insights were huge for me, at least. Great learning opportunity.
Definitely. Gentlemen, are you okay walking through just kind of the 3 days to gather just some thoughts, just so we can reflect, if you will, together on the experience a little bit, and sort of just really give credence and thanks to, quite honestly, all of our guests, if that's okay?
Sure.
Please, we must.
Excellent. So definitively, this is the whole group of brilliant souls who contributed. And again, the 3 days of fear and leadership, risk and agility, and likewise security and uncertainty. And it is crucial for us to really acknowledge the pillars around which we organized ourselves. And these are the keynotes from the first day with Kristen Ulmer's wisdom, if you will, which very profoundly touches very, very deeply to the human element. And then Roland's wisdom, likewise, as expansive into the ecosystems, and then continuing it with Michelle, if you will, in risk ecosystems, and Chet, again, really helping emphasize the integration of agility and anti-fragility and resilience. They are not exclusive, so it's extremely powerful. Ralf, this morning, right, very profoundly helping us see the aspects of security in particular, and then most definitely Robert Fowl bringing it together with uncertainty. So any thoughts on just the keynotes or anything to mention here, gentlemen?
I would say, not just for our audience, right? For me as well, it was a very rounded experience, right? Looking at it from a human standpoint, right? What can I do? Where do I get started? And I come to know that, it starts with me, right? It half of the time I'm my biggest enemy based on the way I'm thinking. Next, looking at organizations or enterprises, how important is the ecosystem? What can we do? How can we influence, right? And then more importantly, the nitty-gritty details that goes into it with the kind of tools that we have. Like Robert very well said, right? Uncertainty is not just knowing also. It's about having that information over there and not being exposed to it is also uncertainty. To me, it was eye-opening.
Excellent. Mudasir, welcome, my good friend. We're looking at the keynotes. Any thoughts to mention here as we're just briefly looking at the keynotes before we go to Norbert?
Sure, thank you. So the keynote speakers, we have covered the topics very, very eloquently, and with the inputs that can be implemented in practice. It can to be specific, the Chettercher's OODA loop explanation with the explicit diagrams and how you bring OODA, as well as the road mapping, how Robert explained about navigating the uncertainty and the art of fear with Kristen Ulmer. And then definitely with Roland, Michelle, and Ralf. And everyone has quite a lot to offer. And there are multiple takeaways from my side particularly, and build that muscle in all the facets of our conference in terms of each characteristics, and look it from agility, resilience, and anti-fragility perspective.
Beautiful. Norbert, any thoughts relative to the keynotes, my friend?
Well, yeah, I see a lot of positivity from the topics. Yeah, that's what I enjoyed most. If I have a wish, I would like to have more diversity, ethnically, religiously, and such things. Yeah, I think this would still give another perspective to the whole thing, coming from completely different backgrounds. Yeah, I think we should strive for this in the next event.
Well said. So if I can, gentlemen, if I can add one other thought, if you will, just if that's okay, relative to what you've shared. Did you have any more, Norbert, or are you good, my friend?
Well, no, this was a short idea.
All good. So as folks look at this, if you will, and we start off with talking about the brink, if you will, of a new horizon, there truly is a design to this conversation and the set of conversations. And these masterful, if you will, keynote speakers were crucial pillars to that design. Everything around them emerged, if you will, everything around the experience emerged. But truly, there is design. This is not happenstance by any stretch. but it's not so controlled that you lose the life force of emergence. So there's a real delicate balance that went into this. So thank you, Kristen Ulmer, most definitively. Thank you, Roland Dusserre, by all means. Thank you, Michelle Walker. Thank you, Chet Richards. Thank you, Ralf. And likewise, thank you, Robert Fowle. Tremendous contribution all around. So gentlemen, of course, diving into, I just want to briefly go through the days here. And here's the first day where we had most definitively contributions from a number of folks. Any particular thoughts to call out? And this was around fear and leadership.
So the conversations that we had with Gauss and Egger are natural. So they put their thought and mind outside and then express what they think in terms of their respective topics, and they definitely connected it to the leadership, fear, and other topics, agility and antifragility. So that's powerful. And yeah, the antifragility radar, it is great. And maybe we had a very little time, we couldn't cover more, and we had some other uncharted waters to explore.
Excellent. John, any thoughts?
I only would be echoing what you all are going to say, but Christine, her art of fear, right? It basically touched me, because a person who's so close to living and dying every time she goes out there skiing, and then knowing that there are so many risks, a small mistake will cost you your life, and how she deals with them was amazing. Additionally, we were talking about mistakes, as to how to look at mistakes, right? And then we were having that conversation also today, to give that permission to make mistakes, and then don't look at it negatively, but use them as learning opportunities, and then let things emerge from it, right? That was huge for me.
Wonderful. Norbert, my good friend, anything to add?
I just wonder how about this apply to what is Christian Ulmer doing? Okay, what she's doing. So I just wonder how she is going about this concept of failures. Now she is always also trying new things. So how to learn from failure? Because there should be no failure in what she's doing.
Yeah. It's life or death, exactly. Forgive me, Norbert. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think she works on with models now. That she prepare the next adventure and go through it and learn in modeling. So,
well said. Norbert, stay close to your computer, because we lose a few words every now and then. So please do stay close so we can hear you, if you will.
Sorry.
Yeah. Perfect. No, perfect. So if I can add, gentlemen, relative. Thank you to all of our guests, if you will, for day one. Tremendous, very, very powerful conversations around fear and leadership. All contributed tremendously. I have to tell you, respectfully, when I stumbled upon, respectfully, Kristen Ulmer, literally within 5 minutes of stumbling upon her work and who she was, within 5 minutes, I had to reach out to her. And she practically brought me to tears within the first few pages of her book. So a profound read. And John, I think you mentioned it touches that deeply to the core. Wonderful guests on day one. Truly appreciate all the energy and wisdom they contributed. So thank you, folks, for day one. How about day two? Of course, we've got likewise our focus on risk and agility. Mudassir, John, Norbert, your thoughts here.
This is where we looked at organizations, right? We looked at ecosystems, and then we said, how much of risk can an organization take? Where should we draw that line? That was very insightful. And then Chet, I mean, that work is amazing. I myself have made a to-do list to go ahead and read all his work and learn as much as I can, because that short time was probably not enough, where we did enough justice to him, right? And then yes, Phil with his risk-savvy entrepreneurship, along with Jaden, that was a good conversation. It gave us the mindsets of what an entrepreneur should be, to embrace, to explore, right? That was amazing. Mudassar, what about you?
So, from my perspective, day two was very insightful. That's my personal choice, and others may disagree or agree. But day two is full of practical guidance, as well as how one need to navigate in professional and in personal circumstances by balancing the risk and agility. These two are very close to my heart. Maybe I have a unconscious bias for these two titles.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you both. How about Norbert, my friend?
Well, I know her almost 2 years now, but I'm always frightened when I hear him talking, yeah, because there is such a threat. Yeah, if the European grid crashes, yeah, it could crash for weeks and even months. Yeah, and what will happen in Europe probably is a similar thing in America, maybe in Asia, I don't know. But he also really has no solution, because there is a human element, yeah, which is such a high blocking roadblock. Yeah, as he said, we have to go to the next catastrophe. Then we will learn. Is there no other way, yeah, to move forward? I don't know. Do you have? Yeah.
I love the way you're saying. I love the way you're asking it, Norbert, because fundamentally it is about our evolution as a human, in the human condition. I mean, there really is no way other than through. There's no way to go around that evolutionary process. And if we ever try to fool ourselves that we can go around it or circumvent, it won't happen. There's magic in the journey, and that is very, very crucial. Ups and downs, positives and negatives.
Well, I'm thinking about
we're not hearing you sometimes, Norbert. I'm not sure why. Forgive me.
I don't know, but maybe the connection. Can you hear me now?
Oh, good.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I just want to know. He advises how to first try to get in trouble. Yeah. So what does it mean? Yeah. Always have small trouble, small problems. Yeah. So that way you can avoid large problems.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't try to avoid separate problems. Yeah. Cover the car. Does the humans try to cover and put it under the carpet? Yeah. But this results in larger and larger problems. Yeah. So it's we should strive to move to a more, yeah, how to say, challenging whatever work and life and everything. Yeah. Reduce, to strive for harmony. Yeah. Even though of course it's nice to have harmony, but too much can create big problems. Yeah. And I think that's what happens. Also hopes, yeah, that we have always problems that hint that they become bigger, the problem. Yeah. And then maybe we can turn around before the problem happens. Yeah. This is my hope, but you cannot follow.
Very, very well said. And this is the power. It's not order or disorder. It's order and disorder, if you will, and the in between. And you need stress. Sometimes I classify myself, if you would. This is in my book in chapter 5. I'm a micro stressor. We need to be micro stressors for each other so that we don't have to become macro stressors that become destructive, if you will, in an unnecessary way. So very beautiful. Very beautiful.
This should be the way. Yeah, this should be the that we should foster. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, just adding to day 2, tremendous contributions from all of the participants. I definitively have to say, brilliant work across the board. The work that John Boyd has done and that Chet Richards again emphasized, the power of these concepts together, is quite honestly a struggle that I've had for the past number of years. People think it's one or the other. Not at all. You need that. And that was very powerful. And I have to acknowledge Michelle. Michelle is, if you will, has been on the journey with me and I with her respectfully since COVID hit in the States. We have done multiple events, and I absolutely respectfully treasure that brilliant soul that she is. So I look forward to all good stuff as we move forward into the future. But in tremendous contributions to our day 2 guests. Thank you, all around. And gentlemen, we'll take a look at day 3, which is today. How about Mudasir and John?
So day 3 is all about reality. Reality is uncertainty is reality, and security is the core thing that human or humanity or human nature seeks or wants. Be secure and be in a comfort zone. It's all about dealing with the reality and putting yourself to enough stress, enough risk, and bring all those aspects and deal with the reality. And all the speakers, keynote speakers, including the other speakers in the conversations we had, are definitely quite insightful. And last but not least, the conversation side that you had on agility, resilience, and anti-fragility, that is very practical, very pragmatic, and it is not prescriptive, and it is easy to implement as well. And all it wants is, as you rightly said, do you have what it takes to sacrifice and implement? And that being said, no disrespect or no taking credit out of any other speakers. They are equally good, and this is a very powerful day.
Thank you, Mudasir. Thank you, Mudasir.
I mean, as we speak, I know it would be hard to mention each and every speaker, right? But what we do is we speak from a personal standpoint as to what resonated with us. Day 3 was amazing. I mean, when you look at cybersecurity from an outside world, you know that these guys are doing a lot of work. There's a lot of stress over there, but it made us realize that these guys are always under the gun.
Yeah.
They're looking at emerging technologies, they're looking at AI as well. But Ralf clearly emphasized the people behind all this, right? That's very important. And coming back to Robert's toolkit, that was as simple as can be, but the beauty of it is let it evolve as you keep knowing or as you keep learning more about the time that you are in, and you look at the future as well. Those resonated a lot.
Excellent.
Norbert?
Yeah, I like most of the speakers today. They emphasize the human element in it. Yeah, when you work with technology, with digitalization, with all these things. Yeah, Mela said this. It's not about technology. It's about people. It's about ourselves to help people to improve their work, to be more successful, and help them solving our biggest problems. Yeah, so this can be easily forgotten, but you have to remind. They keep reminding us about this human element, and only then the whole thing makes sense. Yeah, for whom else is it? Yeah, it's we are not working for technology. We yeah, unfortunately we need this technology to survive. Yeah, but only this way it makes sense. Yeah, human in center stage, and then have to yeah, work on making the life human. Yeah, it's not meant comfortable or luxury or anything. No, human is just uh, yeah, it's yeah, sustainable. Yeah, make life sustainable in our environment, in our nature, and then it will become human.
Very well said on all your parts. Respectfully, the human element cannot be removed. It's quintessential reality, humanity, again, human nature, identity. So profound. What likewise today, I loved how we got Ralph's view from the trenches, right? Living it day to day. Exactly. It was a very, very powerful kind of a key capstone from a practical perspective. And then quite honestly, Robert Fell pulling it all together with the threads, with what have you, again, to end the day with navigating uncertainty. So very crucial. And by all means, the contributions from Jodi and Etienne and Mila, tremendous all around. So a great wrapper to the event. So to our guests of day 3 around security, Thank you, thank you, thank you. As I always say, and very, very powerful. If you're okay, I want to just cover a few more points, if that's all right, before we close out. Is that all right, Norbert and John?
Sure. Yep.
Definitely.
Excellent. Definitively, we've called out to Kristen Almer's work, profound work. Highly encourage folks to dig deeper. Just absolutely profound work. Rollins' work, likewise. It continues to push the envelope. I love that man. And I said to him when he was there, I said, you are after my own heart. He continues to work with the community to move us forward. Tremendous contributions. Definitely take a look at all the good things. Again, Michelle, respectfully, I can't wait to see what's next in her contributions. A profound impact across the world in what she's doing with risk ecosystems, the gray rhino, likewise, the gray rhino relative to the black swan, and you are what you risk and what comes next. So very, very much key. Chet Richards, again, very core to everyday things that we are doing as all these pieces come together. So certain to win, and respectfully to all these keynotes, like I said before, there isn't a client that I have worked with that is not aware of these incredible human beings. Certain to win in particular, I give that book to almost every executive I meet to help them wrap their head around some of these things that we are talking about respectfully, amongst the other books. So not to discount any of them. Ralf, tremendous, definitely take a look at Ralf on LinkedIn. He's got some tremendous contributions in some of the things he's put out there. And by all means, I hope we have him back in some capacity likewise to contribute even more of his learnings. And of course, here with CambridgeRoadmapping.net, definitely take a look at the work that Rob does. The man is not only brilliant, respectfully, amongst our other brilliant guests, but very specifically, he is so giving, as our other guests and our other keynotes are. Tremendously giving, a profoundly giving human being, and learning and sharing. So very, very key. I don't want to discount, if you're okay, gentlemen, before we get to our closing, I don't want to discount the panels that were precursor. By all means, Maria, Etienne, and Norbert, from the first panel that we had, likewise to the second panel with Aid and David, tremendous contributions. Alina, Jodi, and Karina, of course, in our third panel, and by all means, Adeline and Edzo, tremendous contributions. My colleagues, if you will, at the Institute, Sebastian and Peter, tremendous folks, and by all means, Norbert with the Friends of Antifragility are likewise very, very, very key contributors. So gentlemen, with all that said, we'll just have closing comments from each of you before we sign off. So perhaps Mudasir, closing comments from your perspective, dear sir. Oh, you're on mute, Mudasir?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Good. Thank you. So from the closing concepts, everyone has touched each aspects of agility, resilience, and anti-fragility from their own perspective, their own context, how they see agility, resilience, and anti-fragility. Only observing that and understanding from each guest's perspective is quite resourceful and broadens the horizon how to see these three facets. So that's a closing comment as well as a takeaway for me, and then see how I can expand on these areas.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mudasir. John, my friend.
No, like I say, right, I'm a learner, I'm a practitioner. This was an amazing experience. A big thank you to one and all who made this instrumental, for those who contributed and those who took part, right? Thank you so much. Looking forward to many more. Norbert.
Yeah, it was a great conference, and my hope is that it gives an impulse in this world, and that it will be multiplied as often as possible. This would be my greatest pleasure that I'm working for.
Excellent. Excellent. And just sort of my closing thoughts, if you will, very much relative to this. What we do with this event and what energy that's been generated is all up to us, if you will. Us being the wide us, not any small us by any stretch. What we do with it is a choice. This is the beautiful thing. It is a choice. If you do nothing, perfectly fine. If you do something, perfectly fine. But definitively, we are in the wild together, and then we definitely have opportunities to leverage one another and contribute to one another's betterment, if you will. Relative to this conference, even more deeply and more specifically around the topics, if you will, we are on the brink of a new horizon, and it's forever, if you will. I did not accept the notion of a new normal when COVID hit. I talked about the trans normal. It's beyond normal. Same kind of thing. It's not a horizon. It is a new horizon forever unfolding. That's the beauty of it. That theme brought us here. And truly to survive and thrive, we cannot, and I think you've heard it all respectfully together, we've echoed it. We cannot embrace just the traditional view with yesterday's orthodoxy. We must embrace a modern view, re-conceptualize, reinvent, rediscover, re-explore our experiences relative to today's reality. And then not forgetting the fundamentals of John Boyd's agility. Let's not make stuff up. And respectfully, I'm going to be very blunt. Let's not BS ourselves, if you will. John Boyd provided a foundation for agility. Resilience is founded on Holling's work. Let's be very, very realistic and profoundly respect those foundations. And Nassim Taleb, of course, gives us the foundation for anti-fragility, and innovate and evolve and operationalize beyond that. With all that being said, thank you to all of our guests. Thank you to all of those who listened and joined, and likewise who will listen to the recordings. And last without least, thank you to Norbert, if you will, in partnership to advance this journey together, and we'll see where it takes us. And likewise, John and Mudasir, this event could not have happened without your contributions, very, very explicitly. Absolutely could not have happened. So deep gratitude, Mudasir, John, Norbert, and thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The opportunity also to support you, and it was an incredible opportunity. Thinking that I just started with my friends of Antifragility in August and have such a great conference in November I would not have thought about it without meeting you.
Well, thank you so much, Norbert. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. Take good care, gentlemen.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Buddha.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And thank you to all our guests.